Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades.
Hey, what is happening, YouTube? It is Gas Masks and Hand Grenades. We are back for part 2 of the monumental Gigundai Jethro Tull deep dive. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Erik Berg of Psychic Vacuum YouTube channel. What's up, Erik? We were just chatting before we went live about trying to get through all these, another 11 Tull albums. So in all told, we'll have talked about 22, right? I think total.
Let me see. Yep, 22.
22 albums, and then I actually, in digging through my shit, I found these, which I knew I had, but I forgot. This is the Ian Anderson solo album that actually is pretty good. I think it's his first one. It's called The Secret Language of Birds.
Okay.
Which I forgot on jtull.com. We're not talking about this, but on jtull.com, there's a sneak peek track of this album. It's after the long silence, after the long song. This is The Secret Language of Birds comes in. It's actually a good album. I like this one quite a bit. And then
check that out. I listened to his first one was from '83. Called Walk into Light, which I listened to the other day.
Right, that's the second one. You're right. Yeah. I don't know that one, actually, believe it or not. Then here's the 20th anniversary box set, the 3 CD box set, which we're going to tackle the box sets and all that shit in another episode in the future, sometime before like the turn of the century. And then I found this one. This is I believe it's the acoustic. It's called A Little Light Music. That's the all acoustic set. This one's really good. This is a lot of fun. We're not going to get into it because it's mostly, maybe we'll talk about it in the final episode, the third episode. And then the anniversary collection I found. And the crazy thing about this stuff is, like, particularly the anniversary collection, I'm 99% sure there's like nothing new on here. So why did I buy it? I have no idea why I bought this thing. I just have it, you know.
Right.
Money well spent, of course. So, but no, we're actually here tonight to talk about the period from 1979 all the way up through this year, 2023. 11 albums, and we already kind of talked about the first episode, or in the first episode, we talked about where we came into Jethro Tull. So we don't really need to go back to that. And by the way, if you want to watch the first episode with Patrick, the vinyl archivist, he is not going to make it tonight. He had another thing going on, and actually I forgot I was supposed to give him a list of names. So while you're talking, I'm going to finish collating my list and send that off to him. But we're doing I think top 10 female vocalists or something like that, and I put the list together, but I didn't collate it into my order. And so I got to do that while you're talking about one of the albums real quick and send it to him. And if I make it over there, I make it. I doubt I will. But yeah, so we're talking about 79 through 2023. Very prolific band, obviously, with 24 actual albums, I believe it is, if you include the Christmas album and that one there, that A Little Light Music, and not including all the live stuff. But the truth of the matter is that whereas in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, Ian Anderson and the Jethro Tull machine was fairly well on fire from a economic standpoint, as far as being a huge, not stadium, but arena act in the United States. And also, whether as an opener early on and then as a headliner, all the way through to writing, fairly well charting albums, particularly in the United Kingdom and Europe, but even over here in the United States, they had a lot of big hits. We get to 1979 on, and it kind of changes. There's not nearly the success level for this band that they had in the 70s. And I don't necessarily think it's because the quality of the music dipped tremendously, although there are a couple albums we're going to talk about that are pretty rough. One in particular. And so we'll get. Are you ready to get right into it, or do you have any thoughts before we get started?
I don't know. Can probably just go for it.
All right, let's just go for it. So, as if you watched any of the set one, I have pretty much all of these anniversary box sets, with the exception of the one that just came out the 1st of September, and that is for the 1982 album Broadsword and the Beast. I have not ordered it yet because I'm 99% certain it's going to drop fairly decently. It's only dropped a couple of bucks from $80 down to like $75. That was the lowest I think I saw it. I want to get it in the 55 to 65 range if possible, and I'll wait it out. So we're gonna have to deal with the old jewel case version of that. But so this is the Stormwatch 40th anniversary edition. I don't remember exactly when this came out. I want to say 2019. 2019 this one came out. So this is often thought to be came out September 14th, 1979, actually the actual album. Oh, there you go. You get the album. Cool. I love this artwork. Super cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's not Ian Anderson. It's just a lot of people that kind of look like Ian Anderson, like this album, and in particular on fucking Broadsword. It's like, oh, that's not supposed to be me. I'm like, yeah, it is. It's exactly looks exactly like you. What are you talking about?
Aqualung too.
Aqualung, exactly. Yep.
Kind of cool. It's got a little quote here on the lyrics, or on the front cover. Quote from the lyrics of Dunringill, too.
What's that? Lines join in faint discord?
Yeah.
I didn't know that's from Dunringill.
I think it is.
Okay. I believe you. I'm not a lyrics guy much anymore these days, so I don't really pay attention to that.
I'm not really but...
What's that?
Neither am I, but I think pretty sure that's from Dunringill.
You might be right. I just didn't really look. I didn't source it or anything. So this comes out actually originally on September 14th, 1979. It was recorded August 78, February 79 through July 79 at Maison Rouge Studios, which was Jethro Tull's studio. It was actually Ian Anderson's studio. Also at Townhouse Studios, Morgan Studios, the Maison Rouge Mobile, and also they moved that. It was a mobile studio. So it got different local places that it was recorded at. Comes out on Chrysalis, and it was produced by Robin Black, their longtime producer, and Ian Anderson. The album is often considered the last in a trio of folk rock albums released by the band at the end of the 70s, alongside Songs from the Wood from 77 and Heavy Horses in 78. The album's themes deal mostly with the environment, climate, and seaside living, and were heavily inspired by the Isle of Skye in Scotland, where frontman Ian Anderson had recently purchased property. Stormwatch was notably the last Tull album to feature the classic lineup as drummer Barrymore Barlow. Hey, what's up, Rick? Barrymore Barlow. What the hell? And keyboards John Evans and Dee Palmer all were fired or left the band in the months after the album's tour concluded in April of 1980, while bassist John Glasscock had died from heart complications in November 79 during the tour. Glasscock's playing is largely absent on the album as a result of his medical issues, with Anderson playing bass on all but 3 tracks. Most of the album was recorded at Anderson's Maison Rouge Studios in Fulham, London, although some sessions took place at Morgan Studios, Townhouse Studios, and the Maison Rouge Mobile Studio at Anderson's home, due to recording time not always being available for the band at the proper Maison Rouge studio. Like the band's previous albums, Heavy Horses, much of Stormwatch was recorded late at night, as daytime hours at Maison Rouge were usually left open for other bands. Thames television meteorologist Francis Wilson performs a spoken word piece at the beginning of Dunringill. The instrumental piece Elegy, which closes the album, was written entirely by Dee Palmer, making it one of the few Jethro Tull songs written without the involvement of Anderson. And I think it was a he. Dee Palmer was originally, what was the first? It was a David, yeah. And she was one of the first people that really came out as trans way back, man. Like, you know, in the very early 80s, which was pretty unusual. You know, not like today. So, all right, man, you ready to tear into this one?
Sure.
All right, let's go for it.
Yeah, so this is, I didn't really take notes on this one, but I know this album pretty well. This is kind of, like you said, this is kind of the end of an era in a way. It's kind of considered in that folk trilogy. This does have quite a bit of folk on it, but it's not as folky. I wouldn't say it as like especially Heavy Horses.
Yeah, I agree.
And you do kind of miss John Glasscock's bass playing. I mean, he was such a distinctive player. But I kind of noticed, I listened to this again today, and it seems like Ian kind of used a similar tone, bass tone, to what John Glasscock had been using. So it kind of has the similar feel to it, but I don't know. It's the bass playing just doesn't really stand out on the album. It's much more in the background, kind of, compared to the last few albums.
Right.
That said, it's still an awesome album. I really like this album. It's kind of the last one I listened to for a long time. Like until maybe probably only last 6 to 8 months, I started listening to some of the stuff beyond this. But I mean, yeah, just a great album. Start things off with North Sea Oil is a cool opener. Parts of it are, I just saw, forget where I read it the other day, but somebody was commenting that it's in 5/4, or parts of it are, and it's got a little like wooden block hit, which harkens back to Living in the Past. So that was kind of a cool throwback there. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but that's just a cool opener. Some interesting guitar lines and stuff in that one. Orion is a fantastic. Yeah, gets stuck in my head all the time. It alternates between like that heavy kind of epic part with the pounding toms and the heavy guitar riff, and then the acoustic part just comes in, which is beautiful. Home is kind of more of a ballad, but it's a great song too, and some really great guitar lines in that one from Martin as well. Dark Ages is amazing.
That's the big one.
Yeah, 9-minute song, and it's kind of like proto metal in spots. I mean, some of the chugging that Martin is doing on that one is just super heavy, and yeah, awesome song. Love some of the snare work, especially from Barrymore Barlow as well. Just fantastic drumming, of course, as you can expect. One of the most underrated drummers in rock, I would say, to be honest. Warm Sporan is an instrumental, I think, or it's got some kind of little vocalizations, but it's mostly an instrumental. Something's on the Move is another cool one. Old Ghosts as well. But Dun Ringil is like one of my favorite Tull songs, to be honest.
It's actually my favorite Tull song.
Yeah, it's so good. That just the guitar melody is just so, there's something about it. It just gives me like goosebumps every time I hear it, pretty much. I have a little story about that song. I don't know. It just like has a really special meaning for me. A few years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago, probably now, I was just having like a super terrible day. And one of those times when you kind of just like, you're wondering what the point of everything is, because you're just like, nothing is going right. And I don't remember if I was listening to the album or if this song just came on shuffle or what, but the song came on and I just felt this like calmness kind of just wash over me.
It's just such a nostalgic sounding song, even if Yeah, there's something about that just sort of takes you someplace. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I was just like bogged down in my own thoughts about how crappy my day was going and whatever. And I just heard that song and I was like, it's all the bullshit and the hard times and everything are just worth it if you can listen to music that's that beautiful. So yeah, that's one of my favorite songs. Flying Dutchman is amazing as well. Almost 8 minutes, and another one that has a lot of different sections. It does get some of the longer songs on here have maybe less parts than some of their older songs, but the sections themselves are really good. And
I agree. That's a good observation.
What's
That's
that?
a good observation. Yeah.
Elegy is that instrumental to close things out. Yeah, this is probably the last like masterpiece in my opinion from Jethro
I agree.
Tull.
I agree. Yep. It's the last of their great period of writing. As I said, they were on a roll pretty much from Stand Up through this album, with only, I would say, Too Old to Rock and Roll being kind of a dip, and War Child kind of being a weird anomaly, although it's still a very good album. But there was a series of just fantastic albums. I mean, Ian was at, like, what's crazy about that is, if you think about it, is those bands back then were touring relentlessly in between writing albums. It was write an album, go out and tour the shit out of that cycle. And, they didn't have computers. They didn't have laptops. They didn't have cell phones. You know what I mean? It's like hard to believe that was the way society kind of existed back then. So to some extent, it was a simpler time in that you didn't have all this constant stuff coming at you, because you didn't know about it. You didn't have access to 24/7 TV. There was 4 or 5 cable channels. That was it. Or 3 network channels, a public television channel, and maybe 2 cable channels. So you didn't have this incessant, constant stream of information bombarding you, and therefore, when bands went on tour, they had to have good people around them. They couldn't kind of wing it. They had to have good roadies. They had to have good management and merchandising people and all that kind of stuff. Whereas now you can a lot of bands can go out and sort of skimp along with bare minimum staffing, and because they're using technology to help them get by, right? But you didn't have that back then. So you had to have you had bands that recorded an album. They were in the studio for 3 to 6 months, whatever. It wasn't like 3 weeks. Like now you can cut an album in 2 weeks if you're, really good. You can actually cut it in a week if you're really good. But, back then you were in a studio for 6 months to 9 months or whatever. And then the rest of the time, for the next year and a half, you were out on the road. And in a lot of cases, a lot of bands were recording. Some bands were recording 2 albums a year and hitting the road in between there. So think about that, man. Like it's just insane when you think about it. And what's really insane about it is that through all that period from 68, 69 on, with this, because I don't really count This Was. It's not really an album. I think that's all that good, as my ranking will show. But it's from Stand Up on through this album, Ian Anderson was a writing machine.
Yeah.
I mean, he wrote a lot of killer songs. He wrote a lot of high quality material. Does that mean every single song on every album is perfect? No. It just means that the level of stuff was high. The level of output was high, while having to pretty much kill themselves on the road. But they were young men. They were all in their 20s and 30s. Big difference in being in your 50s and 60s, right? That kind of thing. So you don't know that, but you will one of these days. And just trust me, it's a big difference. So
that run of albums from 1969 to 1979. I mean, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 10 amazing albums in 10 years.
Yeah, stunning.
Right? Like, stunning. I can't think of any other band that has that much fantastic music in a 10-year span.
Well,
like Bowie is close.
Bowie would be there, I would think.
But I don't know.
I think Rush from Fly By Night on to Power Windows did a pretty, I don't know what that span of years is. What,
like 75 to 85?
75 to 85. So right there, I mean, that's a pretty banger set of albums too. And I think if we sat down and really thought hard about it, we could come up with a handful more. But you're right, it's a pretty
it's pretty rare.
It's a rarity and it's a hard to grasp thing, right? You know, I mean, even Thin Lizzy, we did Thin Lizzy and we love Thin Lizzy, but I don't think they put out. Well, first of all, trying to think how many albums they put out.
They only have 12 out.
Yeah, 11 or 12 albums, and I think there was a dip, based on Phil's overall health and the ins and outs of the band and all that kind of stuff. And that's another thing. I mean, this band, it's not like they stayed completely stable. It's not like it was always the same five guys. There was a small amount of, a medium modicum of movement. Let's put it that way. All right, let me run into this quick here. So you got North Sea Oil, nice opener there. Nice rock song, kind of like a radio rock song. Orion, very catchy chorus. Orion, very, very cool. I'm probably not going to sing much today because my voice is kind of weird from being super heady with the change. And we got a low pressure system moved in last night. It was funny. I'm laying in bed and I'm like, why am I fucking freezing? It's like freezing in here. I go and look at the temperature. It's like 68 degrees. I'm like, shaking. I'm like, what the hell? And then I realized I have the air conditioner on and the temperature dropped way low. Like temperature got down to like 57 last night. So it was actually pumping cold air in, but with no hot air outside that was changing the moisture. It was like just freezing in my room. I actually turned the air off. So, all right, Home. It's a nice understated ballad, Dark Ages, big prog epic, starting mostly with piano and organ. Great surgical bar guitar on it. Killer track, reminds me a bit of Hunting Girl-like vibes or Velvet Green. Also some killer flute guitar interplay midway into the track. 6 minutes. And Warm Sprang, cool little Irish-Scottish anthem. Has a jig vibe, but it's slower and more anthemic. Something's on the Move, which I think was the only track that was left over from earlier sessions that they had started with this album, then canned, which end up a lot of them end up on the bonus disc, which we'll talk about later in the final episode. That's Something on the Move is really cool. It's kind of a up-tempo rocker reminiscent of a Bungle in the Jungle mixed with Cross-Eyed Mary or Teacher, only a little bit more up-tempo from those. Old Ghost, kind of a boring track. Doesn't do a whole lot for me. That's the one song on the album that doesn't do much for me. Dunrin Gill, probably my favorite Ian Anderson composition and Tull song. And Flying Dutchman's great, man. I love Flying Dutchman. That's a great epic. That's the other epic on the album. It's pretty heavy. And it's got some really cool parts in it, man. It's just a neat, it's pretty proggy, pretty proto-prog metal or pretty prog, proto-prog rock.
The piano on that one's cool.
What's that?
I forgot to mention the piano on that one is really cool.
Yeah. Elegy, pretty orchestrated song by Dee Palmer for her father who just passed away. This is one of my favorite albums by Tull, quite strong overall, although probably it's a little less peaky and valley than the trilogy. It's a little more consistent, but it doesn't have the great, heavy horses and the great, Songs from the Wood or something like that. It's got none of the tracks are quite as stand out as that, except for maybe Dunrin Gill. And Dunrin Gill is more of an acoustic ballad, like historical ballad sort of thing. So I'm giving that an 8.75 out of 10. And mainly just because I think I had in my mind it was a little bit better than I remember it being. It wasn't that I was like underwhelmed. It was just that I was like, oh, I thought this was like way better than I thought it was going to be. So it was a little bit of a little bit of the three, the trilogy. It's my least favorite, but it's one of Tull's best albums. So
I don't think I rated it. I would give it a 9, I think.
Oh, wow.
I listened to it again today, and it was like even better than I remembered it being.
Well, maybe I need to go back to it again. you usually rank things lower than me, so that's interesting. That's the first time you like sort of went, above me there. That's cool. All right, so the next one is A. Jethro Tull's A, and that came out August 29th, 1980. It was recorded May 16th through June 16th, 80 at Maison Rouge, Fulham, Maison Rouge Mobile. And it's on Chrysalis and Ian Anderson and Robin Black again. The album was initially written and recorded with the intention of being frontman Ian Anderson's debut solo album, hence the album's title A. The master tapes were marked A for Anderson during the recording. However, the album was eventually released as a Jethro Tull album after pressure from Chrysalis Records. Anderson has since stated that he regrets allowing the album to be released under the name Jethro Tull. Musically, the album was a departure from prior Tull works, adopting more of an electronic rock sound with heavy use of synthesizers, although still retaining the band's trademark folk influence and Ian Anderson's flute playing. Lyrically, the album saw a similar departure from the fantasy and folklore themes of previous Tull work, instead emphasizing contemporary matters such as the Cold War. The album was the first Tull album released following a large lineup change, which saw drummer Barrymore Barlow and keyboardist John Evans and Dee Palmer departing the band, while bassist John Glasscock had died from heart complications the previous year. The album instead features the first recorded appearance of the band. The album instead features Glasscock's touring replacement, Dave Pegg, on bass in his first recorded appearance with the band. Mark Craney on drums and Eddie Jobson of FM, or not FM.
No.
Help me out. Roxy Music.
Yes, yeah.
And also he was in with Alan Holdsworth. Fuck.
He did
Wasn't that him? Wasn't that
a
him?
lot of stuff.
No, but what was that? What was the band he did with Holdsworth and John Wetton? Damn it.
Oh, UK.
Right,
Yeah.
UK. Thank you. Yeah, so with Jobson was actually credited as a special guest on the electric violin, and it adds some cool stuff to some of these tracks. I think I love electric violin. It features a dramatically different lineup from previous album Stormwatch, and yeah, we already went through that. Never mind. I think I got all the notes on that. What do you have to say about this one, dude?
Yeah, this is. I was just looking at some other stuff that Eddie Jobson did. He was in Curved Air.
Curved Air, yeah.
He actually played on the second King Crimson live album, USA.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No.
I actually didn't know that.
He played with Zappa for a bit as well in the late 70s. And
yeah, he came in to replace. He was Jean-Luc Ponty replacement.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so this album, I mean, you take one look at the cover of this album and you kind of know that it's not going to be the same as the last few, right? It's a totally different vibe from the last bunch of album covers. And it's kind of I don't know, if you compare the cover to the other covers, the sound of this album is kind of like this compared to the sound of the previous album.
Good observation, yeah.
And it is very different. And like you said, it's much more electronic kind of, I guess you could say. There's a lot of synth textures and stuff on there. Way less orchestration, of course. You said like Dee Palmer left the band.
Right.
But it still sounds like Jethro Tull to me completely. And I think a lot of the songs on here are pretty awesome, actually. I like this album the first time I heard it, and I like it a little bit more every time I hear it, to be honest.
Funny thing about this album, when it came out, when they first issued it on CD, which I believe was probably in the early 90s somewhere, you could never find that CD anywhere for under like $40. And this is going back quite a ways back. It's like, man, I'm not paying $40 for a freaking CD. You just couldn't find it. It was out of print for the longest time. You just couldn't write. And it was one of those ones where, I ran across it a bunch of times when I wasn't collecting Tull, when I was just kind of a casual Tull fan. And then the minute I started looking for it, everything I saw was like, $40, $50. I'm like, what the fuck, man? I could have swore I saw this like in a cutout bin, like, a year and a half ago. And now you want, $50 for a CD? Nah, not going to happen.
Yeah. I don't think I had ever even heard it before I picked this box set up, actually. But I found it on Amazon. It was like 30, 35. I think it was about $30 Canadian.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's worth it. And it's got the DVD too with the slipstream video and stuff, which is cool.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah. This is a great album, in my opinion. Crossfire. I didn't take any notes on this one either. I kind of ran out of time.
Winging it?
Take notes. What's that?
You're winging it?
Yeah, pretty much. Crossfire, though, is a super cool opener. Flying Day of Flyer has kind of some interesting melodies and stuff in it. Working John, Working Joe, I like that song quite a bit. Black Sunday is probably my favorite song on the album. Now that's an awesome song.
Yeah, killer song.
Protect and Survive, I'm kind of drawing a bit of a blank on. It's kind of a little nondescript. There's a few songs on here that aren't amazing.
Towards the end.
Yeah, it kind of drops off a little bit in the second half. I do think And Further On is a really good kind of pastoral closer.
Yeah, I like that and Pine Martin's Jig, but the 3 songs before that, not very, very good for me.
I actually, I'm kind of drawing a little bit of a blank on some of them right now, but when I listen to the album, I enjoy them quite a bit. Pretty much all the songs on here, to be honest. So yeah, even though it's different, very different sounding album, it still definitely sounds like Jethro Tull, and I think they definitely succeeded with trying something else, but still keeping their identity intact.
Again, it was supposed to be an Ian Anderson solo album with other contributors. So once Chrysalis was like, "Oh no, we want that album," that once that happened, it kind of changed the trajectory of the whole thing. But it's a better album than I think a lot of people give it credit for being. Is it a great album? I don't think it's a great album. I think it's a solid album. Is it an album that, as a completist, you want? Yeah. Is it an album that stands on its own? Yeah, I think so for the most part. Crossfire is a really catchy, poppy, but strangely still very Jethro Tull song. Flying Dale Flyer is a great tune. Flying Dale Flyer. Just got a great chorus to it. Really good instrumental sections to it. Poppy, but super catchy with a ton of great playing in it. 'Cause I'm a working John and you're a working Joe. That's a good tune too.
Yeah.
Kind of a rock song with some cool odd meter to the musical playing and the way the chorus comes out. It's kind of an earworm. Black Sunday is the killer track on the album, no doubt. It's the beast. Super cool intro. The instrumental section is kind of ominous sort of sounding. Very atmospheric, and it's kind of unorthodox. The delivery by the vocally is kind of unorthodox for Ian Anderson. I love that song, man. It's probably the most overtly proggy track on the album, but it still rocks. Protect and Serve, very fluty and bass synthy. Man, that is hard to say. Bass synthy intro, very electronic. Solid but not great song overall. The electronic drums on that one blow. But it's a little cheesy sounding. This is where we get into the kind of what I'd say is the cheesy part of the album. Batteries Not Included, really cheesy. Not a song I like at all. Uniform, it's all right. There's a cool electric violin solo. The violin and flute duet thing that's going on there, or duel, or whatever you want to call it, it's really good. 4-wheel drive, dude. I don't know, man. That's a dog of a track. It's just not.
It's kind of just silly.
It's stupid, yeah.
But it's also catchy. Like, I have it going through my head right now.
It's a bar room rocker is what it is. A bar room rocker. Pine Martin's Jig is a good solid Tull instrumental with lots of violin and flute. Not sure if that's Ian Anderson on bass or if it's a synth bass. It's kind of hard to tell. And Further On is a really solid closer. Kind of dig this one overall. It's kind of similar to Dark Ages in a way, but much shorter and less overblown. So this is a pretty solid album as far as change in direction goes. A little more poppy, less acoustic. Hey, what's up, Nate? How you doing, buddy? Good to see you, man. Oh, really? This is the show that it includes your favorite Tull album. Boy, I sure hope it's not. Well, we'll get there, but I hope it's not one I'm thinking it could be because I shit all over that. But we'll see. So me again, it's a pretty solid album. It fades a lot after Protect and Serve, so I'm going to go with a solid 7 out of 10. But that's as good as I'm going to go with this album.
I'm giving it an 8. I like it quite a bit.
Mr. Contrarian tonight. I'll just overscore him and he can underscore everything. Yeah.
Well, you keep jumping in before I get to do my ratings, so I got to one up you. Yeah.
I see. All right. This album is the next one. Now, as I said, I'm waiting for the price to go down on this box on the 40th because I don't want to pay whatever they're at $80. Now this is the reissue because it's got the 7 additional bonus tracks on it, which we won't talk about. We'll get into that later in the third episode. This comes out April 10th, 1982, recorded June of 81 through February of 82 at Maison Rouge, Fulham, London, which is where the Ian Anderson studio is. Comes out on Chrysalis, and it's produced by Paul Samuel Smith, which is the first and only time that the band allowed the album to be produced by an outside producer. Ian Anderson was always involved in the production with Robin Black or anyone, or he was solely producing. But we'll get into that real quick. So this album's musical style features a cross between the dominant synth of the 1980s and the folk influence style that Jethro Tull used in the previous decade. As such, the band's characteristic acoustic instrumentation is augmented by electronic soundscapes. The electronic aspects of this album would be explored further by the band on their next album, Under Wraps 1984, as well as Ian Anderson's solo album, Walk Into the Light 1983. Paul Samuel Smith produced the album, making The Broadsword and the Beast the first and only Jethro Tull album produced by an external producer outside of the band and their management. Early sessions for the album were produced by Keith Olsen, I'm pretty sure he did Europe's The Final Countdown. I'm 99% sure he did that. He was also involved with Whitesnake. I'm not sure which album he might have done. He might have done Slide It In, maybe. Am I right about that? You'll have to check me on that. Either Slide It In or maybe 1987. I can't remember. Or was that the dude up in Vancouver? That might have been the dude in Vancouver, John Kaladner, or one of those dudes. I can't remember his name. Anyway, what's up?
Huh?
Here. Let me see. Oh no, I can't click on that link. Never mind. You want to check me on that? Let me know.
What was the
however,
name again?
Keith Keith Olsen, Olsen. I know the Final Countdown was him. I know that. So let me finish this up quick. However, Olsen was dismissed amid creative differences in December 81 and did not receive a credit on the album. The album was the first Jethro Tull album to feature Peter John Vitesse, on keyboards and Jerry Conway on drums. After the conclusion of the A tour in late February 81, Jethro Tull was in need of a new keyboardist and drummer, as keyboardist Eddie Jobson, who billed himself as a special guest when performing with Tull, and drummer Mark Craney had departed with the conclusion of the tour. Cat Stevens' drummer Jerry Conway was recruited due to being a longtime acquaintance of the band, as well as his connections to Fairport Convention. Tull bassist Dave Pegg's, which was Tull's bassist, Dave Pegg, was his other band was Fairport Convention, Sandy Denny. Anderson Barr Pegg, and Conway began recording sessions in '81 at Maison Rouge, while Anderson playing keyboards, recording until July when the band took a 4-month break. In late summer, Peter John Batiste was hired as the band's new keyboardist after answering an ad for the position in Melody Maker. Chrysalis had suggested that the band pursue working with an outside producer on their next album. Canadian producer Bob Ezrin, known for his work with Pink Floyd, Kiss, and Cooper, was initially selected. However, after Ezrin pulled out the last minute, American producer Keith Olsen was selected. Recording resumed at Maison Rouge in November '81. The newly completed band and Olsen were producing. The band quickly found Olsen's working style clashing with theirs. While Anderson described Olsen as a nice enough chap, he described his method of recording with no equalization or effects as a way of working that was completely alien to me. Other members of the band also found themselves in disagreement with Olsen, including Pegg, who described Olsen's selections as record company shite. The band were 1987. That's what I thought. I wasn't sure, but I knew it was one of the Whitesnakes. I just couldn't remember which one. The band also was disturbed that Olsen's personal lifestyle choices were not those of the rest of the band. I don't know what that means. Paul Samuel Smith was ultimately brought in as a new producer for the album after a recommendation from Conway, who had previously worked with him in Cat Stevens' band. Samuel Smith arrived in mid-December that year, and the band recorded with him until the album was mastered in February '82. Samuel Smith, who described his role on the album as very much of a case of looking to Ian to see what he wanted to, and then trying to help him do it, was praised by the band, who found him easy to work with. Band was also last recorded by album was the last recorded by Tull at Maison Rouge, as Anderson sold it in 1983. Cover art was illustrated by American artist Ian McCaig, a longtime fan of the band who later went on to work as a concept artist for successful film series, including Star Wars, Harry Potter, and Marvel Cinematic Universe. Almost done. McCaig was such a fan of the band that he canceled a surprise trip to Paris where he planned to propose to his girlfriend so that he could get the job to design the album cover. Wow, that's dedication. The art was made after McCaig visited Maison Rouge to meet with the band to discuss the cover with Anderson, who gave McCaig a cassette of demos to listen to. McCaig has stated that he intentionally drew hidden Easter eggs in the album art, including runes on the back cover which spell out the initials of McCaig's brother. The edges of the front cover feature writing in Anglo-Saxon runes, which translate to the opening verse of the song Broadsword. I see a dark sail on the horizon set under a black cloud that hides the sun. I like that line in that song. It's so good. Bring me my broadsword and clear the understanding. Bring me my cross of gold as a talisman. So, all right, jump into this one, man. And I got a cool story about this one. So,
yeah, first up, the cover art is awesome.
Yeah,
I
probably
like
one of the best. Possibly one of the best. It's in there with Aqualung and maybe Stormwatch. Yeah, it's probably my favorite actually one.
Yeah, it's one of those covers where you see it and it immediately makes you want to hear the album.
Yep.
Which is exactly what cover art should do.
And funny story, real quick to interject. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was hunting high and low for a Broadsword and the Beast shirt. Finally found a cool one. I'm like, all right, I'm pulling the trigger on it. And I went to buy it, and they didn't have it in my size. I'm like, motherfucker, of course they don't have it in my size. So I'm still on the lookout for a cool Broadsword and the Beast Tull shirt. Go ahead, man.
Okay. This is another super solid album. It does sound, I would say it kind of almost sounds a little more dated than aided. Just the
I agree.
synths and stuff like that, mainly. You can tell that they're mid-'80s or early to mid-'80s synths.
Yep.
But that said, I mean, once you get over the cheese factor a little bit, the songs are actually really good.
Exactly. The songs are good.
And it does, again, it still sounds like Jethro Tull. They have enough elements of their old sound in there as well still. There's enough of Martin Barr's guitar. There's enough flute to keep things from going fully synthy, which might happen in a bit here. But anyway, yeah, Beastie is a really cool opener. I mean, a lot of these songs are really good. Clasp, Fallen on Hard Times is
great song.
really, yeah. I love the just kind of stomping rhythm of that one.
There's
Flying
a lot
Colors.
of there's a lot of earworms on here, like songs that once you hear them, you're like, oh, that sticks out as a song you want to go back and listen to. It's just
Yeah.
it's like, oh, that one was cool. I want to go back and listen to it again. You know,
I kind of wanted to. I listened to this today, but I was like doing stuff while I was listening to it. I wish I had listened to it one more time, like without doing anything at the same time. So I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this one some more, honestly. But it's another one where every time I hear it, I like it better. Flying Colors has some cool moments. Slow Marching Band is pretty good as well. Broadsword is like just
Killer.
super epic. Yeah, I don't know. That's the best song in the album for me, and probably the last like 9 out of 10 kind of song that they would do for me. Pussy Willow is pretty good as well. Watching Me, Watching You is kind of like a little silly, but it's kind of interesting in its own way. That one is like really synth driven.
very synth driven. Exactly, that's exactly what I have written down. Yep. The
Seal-
electronic drums are a little brutal on that one, but
yeah.
it's a good one. The flute on that track's really cool.
Mhm.
I like his flute, the flute playing on that song.
Yeah. Seal Driver has some cool moments as well. Cheerio is just like a little 1 minute thing at the end of the album. But yeah, this is another really good one, to be honest. I'd give it a 7.5, but leaning towards an 8, maybe almost. I got to listen to it again, like I said.
I got you beat on this one finally. Yeah, this, I mean, in a weird way, this, I'm going to blow myself up for 1 second here. In a weird way, the album sounds like it looks.
Yeah.
There's a weird vibe between this artwork connecting to the sound, the actual sound of the songs. And Nate, I don't know if this is the album you were talking about. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. You'll let me know, I'm sure, in the comments there. But, you know, this to me is the last really great album by them. There's 2 more albums coming up that I like a lot. One in particular is in the realm of this one, but I don't think it's quite as good overall, even though, as you say, this album does sound a little bit dated with the synths. But I have a little story about this. Now, it's simply a historical, nostalgic tale. It is not in any way, shape, or form do I want any boys and girls to follow my lead on this story, because my behavior in this story is not, number one, it wasn't legal. Number 2, it was very irresponsible. But I'm not gonna lie.
Legal.
Huh?
It wasn't legal. Should you be talking about this?
Well, it's not grotesque. It involves alcohol and driving. Okay, so I think the statute of limitations is well over by now. We're talking 1982. I'm a sophomore in high school. My buddy John F. We'll just use last names. John F., John N., 3 Johns. John F., John N., John B. We all go out in my buddy's Jeep. He's got this big, gnarly ass Jeep with a roll bar in it. It's fucking huge, man. This guy was working on a farm, making crazy money as a teenager. He's probably making like, this is 1982. He's probably making like $4 an hour, which sounds like, a joke now, but remember, it was 1982. And we went. Somehow one of the dude's brothers was old enough to get us booze. Got us a case or whatever. I don't remember. We're driving around in the fucking Jeep with the top down and chugging beers as we're driving, being dumb teenage douchebags, tossing beer cans, just being assholes, right? And this album in the cassette player, no CDs yet, cassette player, we're jamming this album over and over and over. And like the drunker we're getting, and again, guys, don't drink and drive. I'm the poster child for what that can do to fuck your life up. Trust me. I've had my share of issues with that, and never again. Very, very irresponsible and very stupid. But we drove to this industrial park. This is a Friday night, I'm guessing, Friday or Saturday night. And we drove to an industrial park, and I'm pretty well hammered. I'm shit faced. I think the guy that was driving, John F., let's say, was sort of being responsible because he didn't want to wreck his car. So he was the one guy that was sort of not hammered like the rest of us. When we drive back into, this dude's like, hey, I know this place. Here, let's go do this, right? So we're like, do what? We're like, we're going to go over to the Lay's chip factory. There was a Lay's chip factory, okay? And they didn't run a midnight shift. They only ran up to 4 to 12. So we get there at like 2 a.m. Okay, what we're doing at 2 a.m. as 10th graders, I'm not sure. Who knows? That's all. That right there in itself is a problem. But we find out that they throw these bags of seconds away in their every day in their dumpsters. So we go dumpster diving for bags of chips that are seconds, right, or damaged or whatever. And I'll never forget this, dude. We're walking back there, and I'm chugging a beer, and all of a sudden it hits me. Whoa. Sorry. It hits me weird. This beer hits me weird, and I'm like, and I just start puking everywhere. I have a weak stomach anyways. And my buddy John N walks up. He's like, hey, man, you all right? I'm like, just making room for more, man. I remember that distinctly, saying that like an idiot. So we get these bags of chips. I don't know how many, like 20, 30 bags of chips, right? The ones that are like, this big. We load them into the back of the fucking Jeep. And we're driving around. We're ripping bags of chips open. We're throwing the chips everywhere. They're flying everywhere behind us. Yeah. And while we're doing that, we're listening to Broadsword and the Beast over and over and over. Very irresponsible, dangerous, and asinine. That shit caught up to me later, as I said, but those were good days. And this album got a lot of airplay during that period of time. So I'm actually going to go an 8.5 on this album. And here's why. Beastie has that, the opening synths are really super cool. A lot of nice mix of synth and folky hard rock. It's just a cool track. I like Martin Barr's guitar sound on this album. Yeah. That song in particular is really cool. The Clasp, one of my favorite Tull songs, man. It's just super cool. The flute's super cool in it. One of my favorite Tull tracks. Probably the best on the album overall, maybe, but there's other maybe Broadsword. It's just, that pulsing synth, the vocoder. It's cool, rocky voices, cool chorus. I just love The Clasp. Falling on Hard Times, my friend. Another really good song with a great earworm chorus and slide guitar, which unusual. Not a lot of slide guitar in Jethro Tull's discography since Mick Abrams left after the early albums. Flying Colors, okay track, sounds very 80s though, from the synths to the poppy vibes of the guitar. Melody's not a real highlight for me. It's kind of too long for its own good too. Slow Marching Band, solid ballad that is kind of endearing. Broadsword, it's either the best or the second best song. Oh man, it's so good. Bring me my broadsword. It's so good, man. It's just such a killer, like epic, like we're going to battle, sort of song. And has the best chorus on the album, probably. Love that synthy sound, the ominous, brooding sort of sound of it. Pussy Willow, another great song, man. And I don't know, I kind of like the title, but that's just me, anyways. Killer little acoustic track with the Dunring Gills sort of vibe to it. Watching Me, Watching You, we talked about, cool synth-driven song, but the electronic drums are pretty brutal on this one for some reason. They really stick out. But the song's a good one. I dig the flute on that. Seal Driver's really good prog track in the North Sea Oil or Orion vein. Dig the chorus. Let me make you my seal. No, wait, no. How's it go? Let me make you my seal driver. I think that's how it goes, right? In that vein. Possibly the proggiest. Well, no, it is the proggiest track. Cheerio, just that little ending thing. As I said, I got a soft spot, 8.5 out of 10. It's a great album. Probably the last really great album in their run. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Look what's next. Ian Anderson, if you're watching, you might want to shut the stream down right now because I do not have anything nice to say about this album. I'm just going to tell you. Oh, no, wait. There's one song on here I like. One song out of 15. 15 songs. 15 songs on this CD.
I didn't listen to the CD version.
The CD version has 15 friggin' songs, man, and it's 58 fucking minutes long. All right, so Under Wraps comes out September 7th, 84. Recorded during 84 at Ian Anderson's home studio. Ian Anderson is the producer. This comes out on Chrysalis. Unlike earlier albums where Anderson was a sole songwriter, Under Wraps was the first Jethro Tull album, since this was where the majority of songs were co-written between all the members of the band, primarily Peter John Vitesse or whatever it is. This is also the only Jethro Tull album that features no live drummer. Boy, you can tell all the way through it. All the percussion tracks were programmed electronically. After the recording, Doane Perry joined the band on tour and became their permanent drummer. The original 84 release had 11 tracks, with Astronomy, Tundra, and Automotive Engineering and General Crossing only appearing on the cassette version. Of these extra tracks, General Crossing became the first Tull track never to be released on vinyl, as Astronomy, Tundra, and Automotive Engineering all appeared on the 12-inch single release Lap of Luxury. Yeah. I'm going to go first. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go first.
All right.
I'm pulling a seniority on you for a minute here. This fucking album is awful. It's absolutely awful. Lap of Luxury. Oh my God, man. The 80s dated synths and drum machines are so awful in the band context for this. I guess Ian Anderson felt he had to go there, but did he really have to? I don't think he had to. The vocals are also really shitty. Under Wraps, the only memorable song on the album from long ago listens, and that's not a good sign. I kind of love this song, or hate love this song. Don't make me explain that any further. I don't know. Huh?
You hate to love it?
I hate to love it, but I don't really love it. I hate to like it. That's a better way to put it. It's a shitty song, but weirdly, it's got a little bit of an earworm to it. But man, all those awful sampled synth noises, like the whistling and the dog barking and the car horn. Oh my God, it's so fucking terrible, man. The electronic drums terrible. Euro Legacy, yawn. Later that evening, holy shit, this is way worse than I recalled. Those terrible sampled noises from the street, just grim. Saboteur, terrible percussion, electronic drums. Synths are like bottom of the barrel cheesy. What else? I honestly can't imagine writing this lame ass shit, to be honest. The guitars are like limp and neutered junk. Radio Free Moscow, weak ass cheese guitars. Synths are terrible. Another General Dog. Astronomy, bleepy bloopy synths and weak ass synth drums and percussion. The one lead synth is kind of mildly cool from a nostalgic point of view. The rest is garbage. Tundra, again, those 80s synths. How did some bands like Yes put out a killer album in Drama in 1980 and a solid album in 1983 and 90125? I think that was 83. That never sunk to the lows of this album with the synths and the tech of the era. And you can hear some of that Fairlight stuff on, Owner of a Lonely Heart. There's that beep, wah, wah, wah. But Rabin does a really nice job with it. He makes it very interesting. Here, it's stale. It sounds bad. It sounds low budget. And Yes and Jethro Tull were pretty much on the same kind of platform as far as, popularity around that time, I would think. But Yes did really well in the early '80s. This is just, oh man. Marillion puts out Script for a Jester's Tear in 1983, the year before this, and it's a classic masterpiece. This is just fucking trash. Sorry, Ian, if you happen to find this and you want to write me ugly notes in the the comments, by all means. But I don't think you'd even disagree. This album is just not good at all. Nobody's Car. First of all, let's look at something here. When you call something Nobody's Car, that's the song title. You already have lost the battle. Okay, it's already over at that point. All I said was, Jesus, Ian, what the fuck? Peter Fredette and Ian really shit the bed on a lot of these songs. It's just, they're truly awful. Heat might be the best song, but that awful in the middle when he does that sampling thing. Whole song has more guitars and the synths are the Fairlight samples are so cringy on that. It's scary. Under Wraps 2. Okay, finally we found a song that I like. It's the only song on the album that I like. It's a cool version of the title track done in acoustic form. Geez, I wonder why it's okay. Acoustic guitars, Ian Anderson singing. Ah, that's interesting. Okay, that works. Paparazzi, 80 dated crap. Apogee, trash. Can't believe Martin Barr didn't quit during this album's creation, because I would have, as the guitar player. I would have quit. And then, Automotive Engineering. That's the name of the song. Automotive Engineering. Why didn't you just call it Ford Tractor, Ian, or Ford Explorer Driver, Ian? What about Chevy Corvette? I mean, why not? You know what I mean? Like, Jesus balls. Fucking terrible. And then you got General Crossing, complete trash. This album is a 1 out of 10, and I give it a 1 for Under Wraps 2. 1 out of 10. It's a cringe machine. I can't even believe that Ian Anderson wouldn't cringe when he listened to this or tried to listen to it. I could care less about the tech in the industry around that time in the 80s. There were other bands and artists who harnessed the tech and pressures of the 80s by labels to sound a certain way and made really good albums. For example, ever hear that band Tears for Fears? Oh, yeah, that they made some real fucking great 80s albums around the same time as this album. What about that band Japan? Did you ever hear Japan? Great album. Richard Barbieri was in that band. They made some great albums, used synths very interestingly in the late 70s, early 80s. Hey, how about that band? It's two names that are the same. Hey, Duran Duran. How about that band? They had a bunch of fucking killer hits, and they used a lot of wanky synths, but guess what they had? Great fucking songs. These songs are the worst songs that Ian Anderson ever wrote. I'm just being flat out straight up. This album really shouldn't even get a 1 out of 10. It should get like a 0.25 out of 10. I'm changing it to 0.25. Fuck it.
Wow.
That's all. I had to do that. I'm sorry. Felt very strongly about it.
I guess I'm a big fan of this album compared to you, because I didn't give it a 0.25. But
you should have, but that's up to you.
Yeah, this is one that I did end up taking notes on. So I wrote down here, to me, this album represents the double-edged sword that is technology. The distraction of new equipment can sometimes detract from the focus on songwriting. And that's, I think, exactly what happened here. Like, they got so caught up in all these new gadgets and stuff that they had that they didn't bother to write songs. They were just fooling around with all the new machinery. Compare it, like, I remember in the last episode you were talking about, I think it was Minstrel in the Gallery, which you said Ian wrote exclusively on acoustic guitar, right? And you can tell because the melodies and the chords and the key changes and everything are just fantastic. And I had made a comment, I think, on there, about how when I play acoustic guitar and try to come up with things, they end up being better usually than what I come up with on electric guitar because I'm not fiddling around with the effects and stuff.
Exactly.
Like that. I'm not distracted.
Exactly.
And that said, there are certain things that you can do with an electric guitar that you can't with an acoustic. So it does have its time and place, obviously. But another thing I comparison I made was like a painting compared to like early CGI pictures. You know, like if you look at the like early to mid 90s computer generated pictures, like on some of the album covers that were coming out around that time, they're terrible. And it's like, why would anyone choose that over a good looking painting? But again, it's the technology. People go, oh, there's this cool computerized program that I can use. So then they get so looped into that they aren't actually paying attention to whether it looks good.
That's a great point, man.
So,
and I'll tell you another thing. Just look at this before we go further. Hang on, check this out. This tells a lot right there. That picture tells me a lot. That is, like what exactly happened to the cod piece and the fucking beret, and
he might still have the cod piece on. You can't.
And now we're wearing ascots, tennis sweaters, white tweed jackets, fedoras, and we look like a bunch of old men. And frankly, at this point in time, this is 1984. So Ian Anderson, let's see, he was born in 47, 57, 67, 77, 87. He's only in his mid to late 30s. What the fuck is he? Why are they dressed like this? You know, think about that. I mean, you know, your point about, oh, we got this newfangled technology, but we'll do this cheesy ass fucking Photoshop art, early Photoshop art. And instead of having a painting commission, what I contend is that they were trying to save money. The label was trying to save money. Maybe, you know, that last album, I don't know what Broadsword sold. I'm
not talking about Jethro Tull specifically. I'm just talking about like.
No, I know, but I was getting at the point I was getting at is that they may have been looking to skimp corners a little bit.
Yeah. Anyway, basically everything on this album is a huge step down. Production, instrumentation, songwriting, lyrics, all of it. It does. I will say I listened to Ian's first solo album, Walk Into Light, right before this the other day, and it does make more sense after that than coming right after Broadsword.
Right.
But like this album is nowhere near as good as Walk Into Light, honestly, because there are actually decent songs on there. Yeah, it's kind of in a similar vein.
And that came out in '83, right? So the year before this. I wonder if he had tapped the well. He took all the good shit for his solo album and left all the crap for Tull.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the timeline as well. Here, let me just check this real quick. I mean, you had like 2 years between A and Broadsword, and then you have 1 year in between both of those. But I mean, they were making an album basically every year for the last decade or more at this point too. So I don't know. I feel like he just kind of ran out of steam as a songwriter.
Not only that, I think you're right about that, but I also think too, don't forget, he had bought a big salmon farm around this time. Right. And he became this salmon farmer, house husbandry. He had a large farm. Economically, he was probably doing better from that as I recall. Because the one thing about Ian Anderson, a lot of people maybe don't really realize is he's a super savvy businessman, man. He's made a lot of money doing things outside of Jethro Tull, taking the money that the revenue that Tull generated and creating other businesses out of that are self-sustaining. So he was not just like, hey man, I'm going to make a lot of money as a rock star and go snort it up my nose and buy a big fucking mansion and just party with, chicks. He was married, had kids. He was like a real, seriously, straight up artist that also had many other business interests and was smart enough to be able to follow through with them. So my contention is, and what'll be interesting to see if this happens, I'll let you go into your track by track in a sec here. It'll be interesting to see. This is the next album due for a 40th anniversary, and man, I do not see that happening. I don't know, but the problem with it is if they don't do it and they jump to crest of a nave, everybody's going to be, all the completers are going to be like, but you didn't do that one. And his reply will probably be like, yeah, because it sucks. Or the record company said, yeah, you hardly sold any of these. I'd love to know what the sales on this was. I don't think there's any way of ever finding out, but yeah. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, like you were saying, I mean, maybe Jethro Tull and overall was less of a priority for him at that point, or maybe it was just spread too thin with all the other stuff that was going on. But I don't know. I honestly did not do a track by track on this because everything just is.
It's all
not good to me. Other than, I wrote down a few. Under Wraps #1 has a good melody somewhat and some cool guitar lines in there. Saboteur has a good guitar solo, but it's too short. The guitar solo, that is, not the song. Under Wraps #2, acoustic based and pretty good, but not long enough, I put.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny how like this album is dominated by the synths and drum machines, and the best song on the album is the one that doesn't have any of those.
Exactly.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, that could be a 5-minute song, and I'd be like, yeah, I'll just play that over and over.
Yeah. I would rather play that 11 times than listen to this album, to be honest. And like I said before, I did not listen to the CD version because that's the version that's on Spotify. Yeah. But I was looking at it on like Rate Your Music, and it had the 43-minute 11-track version, and I was like, I don't want to listen to more of this, so I deleted. I was just gonna say, dude. I was just gonna say, you didn't torture yourself like I did for an additional 20 minutes almost. Yeah, it's fucking terrible. Although I'm gonna fess up, most of those last 4 or 5 tracks, I got about a minute and a half in. I'm like, yep, moving on. I mean, I just didn't need to listen anymore. I knew I'd never want to listen to him again. I have this album for one reason. I was a completist until the last 2 albums because I thought they were done. I thought, well, I'll get the one shitty album because who knows, maybe I'll find 1 or 2 songs. Well, I found one song that I kind of like, and it's 2 minutes long. So that's about it. I really do not like. If I didn't make it clear enough, I vehemently dislike this album. I think whatever was going on with Ian, he shit the bed with this album, and I would say that to his face, even though he's a pretty intimidating guy. That's just a garbage album. And I'd be shocked. I'd be truly, truly, truly shocked if Ian Anderson didn't say, yeah, that was a creative low point for me. Yeah. Because I don't know how he couldn't say that. Yeah, like I was saying, I mean, it's not just the production and whatever. It's just that the songs, there's nothing there to make you
everything about it sucks.
Yeah, I also wrote down, this is the first time I find myself getting annoyed by any Jethro Tull song.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, I just want to skip it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right.
So I gave it a 2. I was being nice.
All right. But I can understand that. I can get down with that. I kind of get why. I probably was being a little bit overreactionary. You were probably being a little underreactionary. So all right. So now, instead of the white smocks and the fedoras, we've got this on the next album. Here they look like a bunch of mental patients that escaped the asylum or something. I don't know. Bunch of goobers here. Ian always wears these fucking vest things. I just
Right.
noticed he was big on the armless vest coats for some reason. Um, in the spring or whatever, fall or whatever, I guess. So yeah, this album, Crest of a Knave. Hang on, I'll get out. Comes out on September 11, 1987. It was recorded early 87. This has again different song lengths. The CD has 48 minutes, almost 49 minutes. The vinyl has 39 and a half minutes of music. Came out on Chrysalis, and this is an interesting album because the album was recorded after a 3-year hiatus caused by a throat infection by vocalist Ian Anderson, resulting in I don't know. There might be some members only stuff there. Rick, I'll have to look when Rick is when Erik is talking. Where was that? Oh, caused by this throat infection by Ian Anderson, resulting in his change in his singing style. Following the unsuccessful electronic rock album Under Wraps, wonder why, Crest of a Knave had the band returning to a more hard rock sound. The album was their most successful since the 70s, and the band enjoyed a resurgence on radio broadcasts, appearances on MTV, and the airing of music videos. Now, here we go. We're getting into the meat of it. The album was their most successful since the 70s, and the band enjoyed resurgence at radio. I just read that. It was also a critical success, winning the 1989 Grammy Award for Best Hard Rock Metal Performance, Vocal or Instrumental, in what was widely viewed as an upset over the favorite Metallica's And Justice for All. The album was supported by Not Quite the World, more the Here and Now tour, or Here and There tour. Even though Doyle Perry had become a member of the band since '84, he only appears on 2 tracks, with Jerry Conway, who had played on the '82 album Broadsword, playing on 4. The remaining 3 tracks feature a drum machine. Keyboardist John Batiste had left the band in '86, and Ian Anderson contributed to the synth programming. The album sleeve only. Hold on. The album sleeve only lists Anderson, Martin Barr, and Dave Pegg as band members. Barr remembers this production as being the album where a lot of things were my invention. There are still chunks of the music where Ian very much knew what he wanted, but I think my input was far greater on that album than any others. And you can tell because the guitars come roaring back into the sphere of Jethro Tull. Right here it says the album relied more heavily on Martin Barr's electric guitar than the band had since the 70s. The style of Crest had been compared to that of Dire Straits. Yes, definitely. In part because Anderson no longer had the vocal range he once possessed, the result of recent throat surgery. Ian Anderson later stated about the music style of the album, Steel Monkey was based around a sequencer riff, and it didn't have any flute on it. So it was yet another atypical Jethro Tull song in that it was a radio hit. By comparison, both Farm on the Freeway and Budapest are very typical Tull songs. Budapest is a kind of song I like to write because it embodies a lot of different nuances, which I think are which are slightly bluesy to folk, and it just slips between them, and you don't see the stitching. Crest of a Knave won the '89 Grammy Award for blah blah blah. We just talked about that, beating out And Justice for All and Nothing Shocking by Jane's Addiction. I mean, yeah, because Jethro Tull says metal, like so much more than Jane's or obviously Metallica. This is great. I love this. The Grammy Award was controversial, as many did not consider the album or Jethro Tull to be hard rock, much less heavy metal. Under advisement from their manager, no one from the band turned up to the awards ceremony, as they were told they had no chance of winning. In response to the controversy, the band record label Chrysalis took out an advert in a British music periodic with the line, "The flute is heavy. The flute is a heavy metal instrument." The Grammy award was split into 2 categories and renamed after that event. In '07, the win was named one of the 10 biggest upsets in Grammy entertainment history. Rolling Stone listed the Grammy Award as the 18th most awesomely retro moments in Grammy history. And in 1992, Metallica won the Grammy for Best Heavy Metal Album for their '91 self-titled album. I love this. During the band's acceptance speech, drummer Lars Ulrich says, "We would personally like to thank Jethro Tull for not releasing an album this year." However, Tull did release the album Catfish Rising in '91. That's great. What a great line. We personally like to thank Jethro Tull for not releasing an album. Because I remember that. Everybody's like, what the fuck? I remember they showed Metallica who are standing there like they're basically, it's theirs to lose. and they say Jethro Tull, and like everybody looks at you, they're like, "What? Like, what the
Yeah.
fuck?" It's on YouTube. You can find it. All right,
should
go
watch
for
that.
it, man.
I haven't
Go
watched
for it.
that. I should look that up.
You should. It's fucking hilarious.
Oh well. Cool.
Go for it.
Yeah, sorry, I was reading the comment. This is a kind of honestly another album that I need to listen to a couple more times. I feel like it's a grower. It hasn't quite grabbed me yet. I do think it's pretty good. But apart from Under Wraps, for me anyway, this is the weakest album so far in the catalog. Besides Under Wraps, Too Old to Rock and Roll, and This Was. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that. I get it.
I think a lot of it is the production. I don't know. I just still, for some reason, I like the production still better on Broadsword. The drums on this album kind of annoy me. It's got that really big gated reverb drum sound kind of.
That gated sound. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never really been a fan of that. That said, the snare drum is so much better than the one on Under Wraps. That thing just gives me a headache like instantly. But this is like a huge step up over that. But it does start feeling a little bit anonymous to me, kind of. Like you said, I've heard it before too, the Dire Straits comparison. And
let me interject real quick there, because I've got notes about that in here. And for example, she said she was a dancer. Nate said that's one of his favorite songs. It's a very much a Dire Straits song, and I hate to say it, Nate, Dire Straits does it much better. That's just my take on it. I like this album quite a bit, and I rank it decently high, but I don't think it's like a mind blower. I think there's 3, 4 really good tracks, maybe 5, and then it kind of is just a lot of okay stuff for me, you know. Sorry, Nate. Sorry, buddy. It's his favorite album. I don't want to offend him, but you know.
No, that's cool. I mean, that's what this is all about. We're just saying our opinions, so everybody hears things differently. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly haven't listened to a ton of Dire Straits either, but even just from the few songs that I've heard, I can hear it in kind of the guitar tone and just the way that some of the chords and stuff are played.
For sure.
But I that said, I do like Dire Straits, so I like quite a bit of this. The synths again also kind of sound dated to me, but I mean that's one of those things. Same with on Broadsword. Like once you get over the fact that they sound like 80s synths, then it's okay.
You can move on, yeah.
Unless you hate that sound a lot, but I don't mind it. Steel Monkey is a cool opener with that like pulsating sequencer, I guess he said, right?
Yep.
That's a cool song. Farm on the Freeway is probably my favorite song on the album.
Oh, by far, yeah.
I would say, yeah, that one's got a cool, I don't know, it reminds me a little bit of that kind of, I don't know, I'm drawing a blank on the word. I don't want to say mystical, but kind of that ominous sort of synth and stuff that comes in is kind of like something off A or Broadsword, one of the more kind of epic songs.
Yeah.
I'm kind of drawing a blank on Jumpstart, to be honest, right now, but I didn't take notes on every song.
It's a nice little rocker. It's a nice just a generic sort of rock song. That's all.
This is another album like Broadsword that I need to listen to again. I should have tried to get through these once more before I did the stream. Sorry about that, but anyway,
you shouldn't admit that live. Thanks. I didn't really listen to this album, but I'm just saying.
Well,
you know,
I did. I listened to it a few times, but the last time that I listened to these when I was going to take notes, I kind of ended up having to do other stuff while I was doing it, and I didn't get to absorb them as much as I would have liked to. But Said She Was a Dancer yeah, that's a good song. I agree with Nate. The guitar work from Martin is pretty good on that one. Budapest is the epic kind of the album. 10 minutes.
One of their longest songs too. It's like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's probably their I want to say like fourth longest after
Thick
and Passion Play and Baker Street Muse.
Baker Street, yep.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's a good song. Although I do kind of, I don't know, it doesn't quite have the ups and downs of some of their other really long songs. I do find myself kind of zoning out a little bit in spots, but overall it's a good song. Mountain Men is another solid one. For some reason, the one lyric in that song stood out to me. It was talking about being a bird or something. It's soaring over the blackened plains of Eden, which I thought was kind of a
wow.
That would be like a good metal band name or something.
Yeah, the Blackened Plains of Eden. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's another good song. And Raising Steam, yeah, another solid one.
It's not
overall.
Bad.
What's that?
It's not bad.
Yeah, it's not really a standout to me either. But overall, I'd give this album a 7. I would say.
Yeah, that's about where I'm at. I think I have it at 7.5. Steel Monkey's a good rocking hit. Much better use of the modern synths. Pretty decent track. I like that song. Farm on the Freeways, one of the best post-80s songs, maybe possibly the best after 82. Great guitar playing, flutes, vocal melodies. That the intro bit with the synths is very mystical sort of sounding, almost like sort of nostalgic, but mystically nostalgic, I guess what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Jumpstart's an okay rocker. Said She Was a Dancer, very Dire Straits. I like it, but I don't love it because Straits does it better in my opinion. Dogs in Midwinter, cool track. Like the guitar and flute on this one, although the drum sounds weak and synthetic, which sucks, but otherwise it's a solid track. Budapest, probably the second best track on the album. Probably the second best post. Well, I would say the second best post, but there is an album coming up that has a lot of really good songs on it that I'd forgotten about, so I'm not going to go that far. But it's definitely one of the better songs post Broadsword. Mountain Men, solid track overall. Not exceptional, but good. Lots of decent guitar riffage. Is it the Waking Edge? Waking Edge. Really cool atmospheric intro type ballad. Raising Steam, solid track. Ouch, something in my eye. Rocking, comparatively speaking, or hard rocking a harder rocker, comparatively speaking. However, it's hardly a metal or hard rock song overall, nor is this album. This is their best post 80. Well, I was going to say this. Why did I write? Oh, I know why I wrote that, because I didn't get to this other album. I said this is their best post 82 album. I'm wrong about that. There is one coming up, I think, that's better than this. And has some of the best although it does have some of the best Martin Barr guitar work post 82. But never should have won the hard rock heavy metal album. I give it a 7.5. Although I'm not sure it's really that good despite Farm in Budapest, but I just feel like that's where it belongs. And as Rick said, Jane says no more Jethro Tull awards. There you go. I had to do it, man.
Yeah, that's so weird too to me that like it came out in 87, right? So it wasn't even from the same year
as what?
Like Justice for All was 88.
You're right. That is weird. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
well, I guess.
Even make sense.
Well, they probably have it. They probably allow for like a last quarter, because that came out, I believe, in the last quarter, didn't it? When it came out, September. Yeah, September. So interestingly, September 11th. How about that? 9/11.
Right. Huh. I also should maybe point out I didn't listen to the CD version of that one either.
Okay.
So I only listened to the vinyl, which is like.
I don't think there's. Tracks. Oh, there is a difference. There's
Yeah.
What's on there? I
kinda-
don't know what's on there that's different.
It's only 7 songs, so it's got Steel Monkey, Farm on the Freeway, Jumpstart, Said She Was a Dancer, Budapest, Mountain Men, and Raising Steam.
Oh, okay. So it's missing the Waking Edge and Part of the Machine. Okay, got it.
And there was one that something Dogs.
Yeah, Dogs of Winter, Midwinter.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, it's funny. I didn't actually notice that Part of the Machine. I didn't. That's on the bonus thing, but it's a bonus song on here on the reissue. But it's on the box set, so or to be on the box set. I'm assuming. I'd be shocked if this one didn't have a box come with it. But the problem I see with that is if you do this one, you almost got to do Under Wraps, and I do not see Under Wraps selling that well, unless what they might do, possibly, is they may do an Under Wraps book box, but it's probably going to be super limited, like 5,000 copies. And if they sell out, they'll print another version. If they don't sell out, they'll bargain basement them. And so that's one you can probably grab for if they do it. I can't see Steven Wilson going, I can't wait to do Under Wraps. I just can't see him saying that. I guarantee it. Wilson's saying the same thing I'm saying, that this is a crap album. So I can imagine he's good friends with Ian Anderson, and I can just imagine that call. Hello, Steve. It's Ian Anderson here. Look, mate, I think I'd like to do Under Wraps. Oh, hello, Ian. Well, mate, I'm going to be busy for about the next 7 years. Sorry about that. Sorry, chap. I can just imagine that's the conversation. I know someone else that does 5.1. Let me give Jocko Jaksic a call. Let me see if he'll do it for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. Steven Wilson is into a lot of different stuff, so who knows? Maybe
he is, dude. There's no fucking way he's doing this album unless Chrysalis comes to him and goes, "Hey, here's $15,000 for doing this," or something crazy. You know what I mean?
But what would he even do with it? Like,
what's that?
What would you even do with it? How are you gonna make
it?
You can make it sound less terrible, but you're not gonna make it sound good.
Yeah, I don't know if this is one that you can put into 5.1. I have no idea. Well, I don't. It's not going to improve it. That's for damn sure.
No, the remix and remaster and stuff. When you're working with a pile of turds, it doesn't matter how you rearrange them.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You can't polish a turd, is what they say, right? All right. So moving on to this one, which this one gets kind of panned, Rock Island. It gets kind of shit on a little bit, and I have to admit, I'm not exactly sure why. It's not a bad album overall. Comes out August 21st, 89. Recorded early 89. Jethro Tull producer, Chrysalis label. The album continued the hard rock direction the band took on the previous effort, Crest of a Knave, in 87. The lineup now included Ian Anderson, Martin Barr, Dave Pegg, and drummer Doane Perry in his first full recording with the band, although he had already been a member of Jethro Tull since 84. Without a permanent keyboard player, the role was shared by Fairport Convention's Martin Alcock and former Tull member Peter Vitesse. Rock Island went gold in the UK with good sales also in Germany, where it peaked at number 5. Kissing Willie was a hit on rock radio, reaching number 6 on the mainstream US chart. Well, of course it did, because it's about giving fucking blowjobs. So, of course, in the United States, where we're so sexually repressed, we literally, don't even get me started on Lauren Boebert, because I just have so much to say about that, but we'll just stop there. Anyway, we're so sexually repressed in this country. We're the number 1 nation in the world in consuming porn, but we're repressed. And 2, we love songs about blowjobs. So there you go. The staging in the 89 tour supporting Rock Island featured projected silhouettes of live dancers, not live with a THE, kissing during Kissing Willie, ending it with an image that bordered on pornographic. Interesting. The song Big Riff and Mondo reflects life on the road for the relentlessly touring musicians, giving a wry account of the theft of Martin Barr's prized mandolin by a stage-struck fan. Oh, that probably didn't go very well. I don't get that, man. Like, who the fuck? I didn't want to start talking about that. Why would you steal? Well, whatever, man. Fuck that guy. Yeah. So Rock Island, what do you got on this one, dude?
So this is it's another solid album. I don't think it's quite as good as Crust of a Knave for me.
Agree.
It's just kind of, I mean, it's longer for starters. It's like, if you compare the vinyl, well, I don't know. Maybe this would have come out. Yeah, I guess this would have come out on CD. And that's
Yeah, it
kind of,
did. 50 minutes.
yeah, 50 minutes for the regular version versus 40 or 39 for the LP version of Crest of a Knave. So you got 10 songs on here. Yeah. What did I have for this one? I don't know. A lot of the songs here kind of just don't really go anywhere for me. They're just very like they have one thing that they start and they kind of just ride it to the end of the song. For me, there isn't much variation, and a lot of the songs kind of end up sounding similar to each other as well.
Yeah, I agree. Yep, I agree.
That said, there aren't any songs on here that I hate. But it's overall, yeah, there's not a whole lot to latch onto. It's overall their most kind of basic album to this point, probably excluding Under Wraps, of course, but definitely more of a straightforward kind of rock style and not much prog.
Yep.
To be honest, but there are some pretty good songs. Kissing Willie is pretty decent as an opener.
Yeah, it's got a good riff. It's got a good riff, and it's kind of cool how the lead guitar works with the flute on that one. And I mean, it's kind of hard to deny that it's kind of catchy.
Yeah, that's one thing on this album. There are some catchy melodies on a few of the songs for sure. Yeah, I didn't go track by track. I just pulled out a few highlights.
All right.
Like the title track, Rock Island.
It's a good one.
That's definitely one of the more memorable ones. I think Heavy Water is pretty decent as well. And The Whalers' Dues is definitely my favorite song on the album.
Might be mine as well. It's kind of the dark. It's kind of the dark times of this album.
Dark Ages, yeah.
No, Dark Ages, yeah. Sorry. Dark Ages.
Close to 8 minutes, and it's kind of almost a prog song. It's got a prog feeling to it. It's not all that complex, to be honest, but I really like that that motif that comes in with it's like descending and ascending at the same time. It's like the bass is going downwards and the flute and guitar going upwards, I think, on the scale. And it kind of reminded me, for some reason, of a Peter Gabriel song, Waiting for the Big One, I think it is, off of his first solo album.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not really familiar. Not super familiar with the early Gabriel, believe it or not, crazily as that sounds.
Yeah. His first four albums.
Just the what's it called? Melt. It's called Melt. Yeah, that one with Games Without Frontiers. And that's probably the best one I know. Those are albums. It's weird. Much of a Genesis fan as I am, I never gravitated towards them. And was just talking to Eli the other day and about doing a dad episode. And he's like, "Let's do Peter Gabriel." I'm like, "Dude, I really don't have much from him. I have So because everybody had it, and I don't actually have the first four. Of course, I know stuff like Salisbury Hill, Games Without Frontiers, Shock the Monkey, the hit songs, but I don't know the deep tracks on those albums, so I'm gonna have to get those.
All the first five are all great. That's all I've heard, but
I saw on Instagram Mike Portnoy and Neil Morse went to see Gabriel in Philly last night. It was either last night or Friday night, and man, the stage show is fucking epic looking, man. It's super so cool. But it's funny because I was thinking, side tangent here. We're getting tangential for a sec here. So it's funny because back when Porcupine Tree toured last September, I had tickets to go down with Serge to the Philly show, and I didn't end up going. And boy, I tell you, I regret that. That was a huge mistake. I just was really not starting to feel well at that point, and I was struggling with how to handle the symptoms, and I was feeling I was going to get down there and be way overwhelmed and have panic and anxiety, and I had to drive, and I didn't want to drive. Long story short, I didn't go, which sucks because we were sitting up in the loge section, right? And Richard Barbieri, who, by the way, remind me at the end to do my what's coming up, because I got an interview with Richard coming up next Sunday. Richard bounced us up to like dead center 8th row or something crazy like that, right? It's like, fuck. So, but after the show, Serge had passes to go back, to the green room. And Steven doesn't come out and fraternize with fans anymore, apparently. I don't know. I mean, he didn't at this show anyways. And Gavin only does his thing, but I guess the two other guys that were with him, the new guitar player and the bass player that was with him, I don't know what's up there now, but Richard came out and talked to Serge. But on the way there, they ran into none other than Mike Portnoy, like going in the elevator at the same time they were to go to the green room. And I know Mike. I met Mike at least a half dozen. Does he know my name? No. But we've had some funny interactions, including when Marillion was last over, well, when they came over from Marbles, which I think was, what year was that? 90, whatever Marbles year was.
90s would have been.
No, I thought it was late 90s. I can't remember. Right. 98, 99, 97. I don't remember. It's too long ago. And when they were playing at the TLA, and there's a section of the bar. What's that?
Marbles was 04.
Oh, it was 04. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because they came in 05. This was 05. Because Marillion's always had a tough time getting over here and making the finances work. But they did do a pretty, like a crowd-funded thing where the crowd put up a bunch of money and they booked a lot of cool dates. And it was a pretty cool show because it was fucking packed, dude, like crazy packed. Like more people I think I've ever seen in that venue. And that venue only holds 1,200, but it was like wall-to-wall people. And when I got there kind of late, there was really nowhere down on the floor that I wanted to be. So I went up. There's a section where they have like an elevated bar off to the side of the stage when you walk in. And by the back of that, I didn't know this, but there's like this big drapery, like a big velvet curtain. And I didn't realize it at the time. I found it out that night that's the way to the back of the stage, right? So I'm standing there by this thing, kind of leaning back, and I'm it's so fucking hilarious. I'm standing now. I met Portnoy one time before. I met him on the 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence. A friend of mine had a music store, and that was the first year they were repping the John Petrucci. We'll get back to Tull in a minute, guys. They were repping the Petrucci Majesty guitars, and he had a pass, and he gave me one. So I got to meet John and all of them. I think all of them were there, and I talked to Mike very briefly, but. Back to the Marillion story. So I'm standing there, and Marillion's just starting to play, and freaking, I see Mike Portnoy and this dude walking towards me. Now I'm not a big tall dude. I'm only 5'7" 3/4. I'm just under 5'8". But Mike's not very tall either. He's only about 5'7", 5'8" maybe, and maybe 5'9" most. And he comes walking up, and I'm standing there, and he reaches into his back pocket, and he's standing there like right in front of me, like staring at me, and I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, hey, reaches in his back pocket and hands me his license. And I'm like, and then he pulls out his like backstage pass. I'm like, dude, I'm just I know who you are. You're Mike Portnoy, dude. I'm like, why are you announcing that to me? And he's like, oh, I thought you were the bouncer, the checking the door guy or whatever. I'm like, nah, dude, I'm just watching the show, So he went back in and disappeared. That was the first time I formally met him, like, and talked to him. And then I saw him again at like 2003. Well, actually, you know what? Now that I think of it, that was 2003 was the first time I hung out with him, was backstage at an Opus show. We went to see Opeth on Deliverance, the Deliverance tour. And Michael Piper, who's passed away, sadly, got us backstage, my friend John and I. And we're hanging out with Peter when Peter was still in the band, and Michael, and Doc Coyle from God Forbid was there. And the singer, I don't remember his name, the big black dude, huge black dude, He was there, and someone else was there, and Portnoy walks in. And I'm like, hey, look who it is, And so I ended up talking to him there. So I've run into him at a Fates Warning show, at 2 other PT shows backstage, and I always remind him, I'm like, you know me, remember? I'll show him my tattoo, my Marillion tattoo. He's like, oh yeah, I remember you. But we wouldn't know each other if we talked to each other. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway, I got way off base there. Way off.
Peter Gabriel. You were saying something about Peter Gabriel and Mike.
Yeah, he went to see Peter Gabriel. And so I don't really know those albums now that I think of it. I need to kind of explore those and kind of get back on task with it. But you were saying a song, The Great Unraveling or whatever?
Waiting for the Big One.
Waiting for the Big One. Okay.
Yeah, off the first album. I really like his first solo album. It's great. But anyway, yeah, that what was it called? The Whalers' Dues. That's definitely my favorite song off Rock Island. Yeah. Other than a few songs, the rest they're fine. They're not terrible, but they don't really grab me a whole lot.
Me neither. Yeah.
I don't know. I give it like a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I give it slightly better than that, but not much. I go 6.5. Kiss and Willie. It's despite the topical matter, whatever. It's it's funny. It's a good heavy rocker. That flute and guitar work really well in that song. Rattlesnake Trail, it's okay. It's okay. Ears of Tin, it's okay. Undressed to Kill, that's not a bad track. I like that. Rock Island's a really good, solid rocker. Atmospheric, in an atmospheric way, but this is the album. You can hear the wear and tear. You really hear the wear and tear on Ian's voice on this album, I think. He just doesn't sound very good. There's a good heavy jammy section on Rock Island at about the 3-minute mark. Heavy Waters, really great guitar playing on that song, but the song's just okay. But the guitar playing is killer. Another Xmas song, I kind of like that. It's a nice little sort of acoustic-y, he always does like a Christmas type sort of bass thing. Whalers do definitely the epic killer track on the album, without question. Really, you already nailed it. Big Riff and Mando, another solid acoustic electric rocker. Good, but you can hear the limitations on Anderson's voice on this song really solidly. Strange Avenues. I actually like that song, man. That's a pretty cool closer track. It's jammy, it's riffy, it's a lot of good musical interplay. I dig that song. It's a much better album than I recalled it, but not amazing in any way. I give it a solid 6.5. Lots more guitar, and that's kind of why I like it. Half good tracks, half meh tracks. So
this is an album that I might throw on once in a while.
Yeah. If I heard it once a year, I'd be like, I'd let it play through. Okay, so now we got Catfish Rising.
One thing I want to say is you were talking about the vocals, and he just doesn't have the power. That he do. It's like he's singing really quietly, and then they turn it up afterwards.
Yeah,
it just doesn't have. He can't get that tone that he used to, and he
doesn't have the he doesn't have the lung power to force it out anymore. Like there's something.
It's just lacking the dynamics.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yep. Exactly. So Catfish Rising comes out. It's the 18th studio, released in 91, September 91. It was recorded early 91. The CD is 60 minutes long. The vinyl with bonus 12 inches, 49 long. It's the first Tull album to feature Andrew Giddings as the keyboardist. Continues in the hard rock and blues sound of the previous 2 albums. It was on the Chrysalis label. Starts out with This Is Not Love. Go for it.
Speaking of lacking dynamics.
They're all kind of one speed, right?
This album is it's like a continuation of Rock Island, but it's kind of just missing the highlights for me.
Very good, very well put. Yes.
It's just, I don't know. I mean, okay, let me see. Less. I put down the songs are even less energetic. Tull is starting to fall prey to the CD format.
Yeah.
Like 40 minutes worth of this type of material would be plenty.
More
but
than enough.
yeah,
More
but
than
we
enough.
get a full hour of it too, which doesn't do this album any favors.
Very good point. Very good point.
I mean,
they're doing exactly what they're doing the same thing all the other bands around this time were doing though too. They were filling up it's like, oh, we have this 72-minute thing now that we can play around with. And all the bands were, guilty of it. Dream Theater, for fuck's sake, doing 74 or 5-minute albums. It's like, oh, come on, man. Like looking back now, when I was in it at the time, I'm like, oh, more music. Oh, I get more for my money. But that more doesn't always equate to good.
Yeah. My kind of sweet spot is like 35 to 45 minutes, unless it's like some big thing with, like, say, The Wall or The Lamb Lies Down, something like that, where it's got a lot of diversity to keep you interested the whole time through. If it's just the same kind of songs for the whole time, it's just too much.
It's terrible.
And again, like, these songs, I'm just reading the names. You get 13 songs on this album.
Yep.
And most of them, I mean, I can kind of remember some melodies here and there, choruses, occasional.
This Is Not Love. This Is Not Love is the one that sticks out the most. And Thinking Round Corners. That one I remember.
But it's not amazing. It's just, it's fine.
No, most of them are just, they're just not very good. I'll tell you the weird one though. Are you familiar with The Godfather, the movie?
Slightly, not super.
It's got the theme song is da 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 da. Still Loving You Tonight is just basically a ripoff of The Godfather.
Okay,
it's a ripoff of the theme almost entirely. And it's not very good. It's really bad.
Well, that's my favorite song on the album. To be honest.
It is, dude, it is such a ripoff of the theme music.
Okay.
Man. It's so funny.
I'll have to
you
check
gotta
that
look
out.
that up when we get done, yeah.
But I don't know. That one, I like the kind of Spanish guitar stuff in it. I thought it was kind of cool. It was like the first time that something really jumped out at me on the album. But I don't know, like the rest of these songs, like all I can remember is like the line that the title is for a lot of these. Yeah, and I can't think of anything else that happened in the song. I will say there was a moment the first time I listened to this album. You already dropped an F-bomb, so I'm gonna take my shot here. Like a Tall Thin Girl, that song, the first time I listened to it, I was like at work, but I was listening to the lyrics for whatever reason. Right. Just the song ended, and no one was around, and I said out loud, just out of reflex, I was like, "God, that was fucking stupid." Like, I wasn't even talking to anyone. I just heard myself singing it. Oh,
it was just a gut. It was a gut reaction.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Some of the lyrics start getting really like they're kind of funny in a way, but they're just kind of dumb too, and just I don't know. This album.
Yeah, I mean, he can do some really great lyrical content, but he can also be, some of his stuff can be like really, dude, like really.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's getting worse. It's getting worse the further we get into the albums usually.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. This album just doesn't really do a whole lot for me at all. It just kind of goes by, and then I just want to listen to something else, and I don't really remember much from it. So I gave it a 5 out of 10.
Okay, I just realized something. Shit. Wow. How about that? I'm missing one CD. How about that? I'm missing one, and it's probably my favorite of the post-82 era. Shit. Well, I'll have to show a picture then, because I don't think you have it.
No.
Let me run through this very quick. This Is Not Love. Ian Anderson trying to be a hard rocker, and it's kind of meh. Occasional demons. He starts doing the vocalization. He does that thing on the flute where he's going, and he's like yelling into the flute, and it's annoying as fuck. I get tired of it. But whatever. Roll Your Own. That's kind of a fun one. It's sort of a funky acoustic blues song that's
Right.
not horrible. Rocks on the Road. Again, a Dire Straits track. To me, it's part Farm on the Freeway Part 2. But I kind of like that one. It's one of the better songs on the album. Sparrow on the Schoolyard Wall. Not a bad track. The blues thing is kind of meh. All the tracks on here are like that style. But lots of good, tasty playing by Bar. Thinking Round Corners. Kind of cringy on that song. Still Loving You Tonight. Kind of a piss take on the theme from The Godfather, Blues Pout. It's all right. It's nothing special. His voice sounds really ragged on there. Holy shit. Doctor to My Disease. What an awful title, and what a bad song. White Innocence. That's a weird song. I'm not sure what's going on there. I probably should read the lyrics. Let me see something here. I don't really know what this song is. Okay, here we go. I am curious. So here's the lyrics. I'm going to read a little bit. She drifted from some minor festival. Didn't look like any summer of love. Just 1,000 weekend warriors in a muddy field. She was the hand to fit my glove. Funny thing, the innocence of the lonely. Funny thing, the charm of the young. See how she moves just like two angels in white innocence. Oh, okay, so it's angelic. I guess it's supposed to have something to do with being angelic. I don't know. But yeah, I thought it had something to do with like racism. I was like, that's kind of interesting that far back. But because this is 1990 or 2006. Is that when it came out? No, when did this come out?
1991.
91. Yeah, I was going to say not 2006. Tall Thin Girl. What a dog track. White Innocence. And it's another Farm on the Freeway track to me. Sleeping with a Dog. Pretty meh. Old black tip boots, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Bluesy, folky, jig, not horrible. When Jesus Came to Play, not the best track. I'll go a 4.5 out of 5 on this. It's just not a very good album. It's just not one that's essential. I wish I could say that it gets a lot better. Well, actually, it does. It gets a lot better with the next album. But unfortunately, I do not have this CD on me. I thought I pulled everything, and I must have missed one. So we'll just give you a quick presentation of the album from this. And it's... Can you see that? There we go. That's the album cover there. I thought I could blow it up. No, I guess I can't. Roots to Branches comes out September 4th, 95 in the UK, September 12th in the US. Recorded December 94 until June of 95 at roughly 60 minutes. Chrysalis. It carries characteristics of Tull's classic 70s prog rock and folk rock roots alongside jazz and Arabic and Indian influences. All songs were written by Ian Anderson and recorded at his home studio. This is the last Tull album to feature Dave Pegg on bass, and the first to feature keyboardist Andrew Giddings as an official member, although he had contributed to Catfish Rising as a session player. As a result, the album notably features the 5 longest-serving members to date in Tull's history. It was also the final Tull album to be released through longtime label Chrysalis Records. In some ways, the album was much derived from the visit Ian Anderson made to India. S.A. Allen, in a history of the band, somewhat reductively describes the album as an Indian Songs from the Woods. That's actually a good way to put it, actually, believe it or not. About Roots to Branches, Ian Anderson said, I see Roots to Branches as the 90s version of Stand Up because it has a lot of things that I feel represent the key elements of Jethro Tull. Lots of flutes, lots of riffy guitars, and quite a broad palette of influences, from the blues and classical to the Eastern motifs that were apparent on Stand Up. On the other hand, Anderson also added that the only thing about it that lets me down is I made it sound a little too 70s. I deliberately made the album sound like it was in the context of a live performance rather than have it sound like too studio. But looking back on it, I think it should have been a bit more varied. What do you have to say about this album? Because I will tell you that I honestly think this is my favorite post 1982 album, post Broadsword album.
Yeah, I would agree.
He kind of caught lightning in a bottle and wrote a bunch of good songs here.
Yeah, they're definitely better. Took a few notes here. A definite step up in quality. Most noticeably, the songwriting is definitely more interesting than on the last couple albums. Like you were saying, there's definitely kind of a Middle Eastern influence in a lot of the melodies. A lot of great guitar work from Martin on this album.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty heavy riffs as well in places, which are cool. I don't know. That's one thing about the last couple albums too. There were some good crunchy guitar riffs, like hard rock stuff, but just kind of nondescript. The riffs themselves weren't that great. The guitars sounded good, but I don't know. On this album, the riffing is way better, basically, which is also emphasized by the more modern guitar sound. Like he's got a really good crunchy, almost kind of metal tone.
Almost. At times, almost, yeah.
I don't know. As far as the songs go, I don't think any of them is amazing. There's nothing here that completely blows me away, but there also aren't any songs that I dislike. The songs are just all really good.
Yeah.
They're generally
wounded, old, and treacherous is the only dud for me. I do think Besides Myself is pretty cool. It's kind of unique.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
And also Rare and Precious Chain has that really Middle Eastern Rare and Precious Chain. And then Besides Myself, I'm beside myself. There's a lot of earworms that I, like Roots to Branches. And then you got Valley's kind of a weird one with the weird lyrics and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's Dangerous Veils is super proggy and rocking. There's a lot going on in that song.
Yeah,
and then you got the two big ballads like At Last Forever and Stuck in August Rain. They're really, it just seems like they latched onto something song-wise that was above the rest of what they had done most of the 90s, 80s and 90s into the 2000s.
Yeah, that's the main thing for me too, is like the melodies on here are just better than...
They're memorable.
Yeah, they're much more memorable than most of the last few albums. But that said, they're still not quite on the level of a lot of the 70s stuff.
Oh, not even close. No.
But they are very good. And also just the diversity, like the songwriting dynamics.
Yeah.
There's quiet parts, there's loud parts, there's heavy parts, there's soft parts, and there's more interesting instruments and stuff coming in as well. It's much more diverse than the last two albums, especially, which were kind of just one thing the whole way through for the most part.
Yep. Yeah. Very, very good point, dude. Very good point. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't really take song notes on this one.
That's fine. We don't have to do that, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of knew this one was not going to be 4 hours because there's just not as much to say about some of these albums. I mean, I've got virtually nothing to say about the last two. They kind of went in one ear and went out the other, and I was like, nothing jumped out at me as amazing. Nothing jumped out at me as like particularly cringy. Well, we'll get there in a minute, but neither one of those. I'd probably have 2 minutes worth of stuff to talk about. We don't have to, and keep in mind, man, we still got you and I still have one more episode where we got to talk about 1, 2, 3 box sets, Living in the Past, Nightcap. I mean, there's still another 3-hour episode on just that stuff to go yet, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's another probably 75 songs there that never got released on albums, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, easily. So I didn't expect this to be a 4-hour episode tonight. We don't have to make it that. Yeah. So I did do some. What do you give this one then? If you had to give it a ranking,
I'd probably give it a 7.5. I did put down the opening track, the title track, as my favorite, probably my favorite song. But yeah, they're all pretty good.
Okay, cool. Roots is a killer track, man. A top post 82 track. quite heavy and menacing. Rare and Precious is really cool. It's got that really cool orchestrated Indian sort of vibe to it. It's very ethnically Middle Eastern sounding, and it's pretty rocking. The out of this noise, it's okay. It's kind of just an okay track. This Free Will, kind of menacing and dark and highly orchestrated, pretty cool track. Valley has some weird lyrics. I'm not sure what's going on there, and I don't have the booklet here to show. I have that CD, but I don't. I must have left it in the box. I thought I had everything. Besides Myself, one of my favorite songs on the album, has a really cool earwormish chorus, lovely instrumentation, vocal melodies. That's a killer track. Wounded Olden Treasures, very cheesy, honestly pretty lame. At Last Forever, pretty cool atmospheric, moody ballad with lots of nice orchestrations. Really cool track. Stuck in the August Rain, really chill, wistful ballad, nice, nostalgic. I really like that track too. Another Harry's Bar. Sounds like a stupid title. It's actually a pretty good song. It's actually got a lot of killer jams on it. The coda, that fading out on the coda, one of the best jams they've done in 20 years. I mean, it shows these guys are still great musicians, you know, between Ian and doing the flute thing and Martin being a really tasteful, really good lead player. He's not going to be blasting out, tapping and, sweep picking and shit like that, but you wouldn't want that on a Tull album. I wouldn't want that on there. He just plays really melodic. I love Martin Barr's tone. He's always had great tone. He's a PRS guy, so I love him for that. At this time, he's a PRS guy. But Harry's Bar, great closing track. Dude, I'm actually going an 8.5 on this album. I like it that much. For me, it's the last really great Tull album. So what's that tell you? That was 1995. God.
Yeah, I think so.
So we're talking 2005, 2000, almost 30 years. Wow. All right. Anyways, moving on to this one that I do have. And this was the last Tull album for a very, very long time. This comes out, and there's a reason why, because, anyways. This comes out in 99, August 23rd. Hey, that's my kid's birthday. And my daughter was 4 years old when this came out. How about that? 54 minutes again, long. Comes out on Papillon Varie Sarabande. It's a French label. Ian Anderson produces. It's 20th studio album. Hold on. Wait, it says the Chrysalis Group's late 90s heritage record label. Okay, I didn't know that. It was part of Chrysalis then. It was released 4 years after 95 Roots to Branches and continues in the same vein, marrying hard rock with Eastern music influence. And it is the first album to feature Jonathan Noyce on bass, who would remain in the band until 2007 in Jethro Tull's longest ever unchanged lineup. This was the last Tull album to feature all original new material for 23 years until the release of The Zealot Gene in 2022. Although the band did release a Christmas album in 2003, which contained a mixture of new material, re-recordings of Tull's own suitably themed material, and arrangements of traditional music. So, all right, what you got on this one? While you're doing that, I'm going to hunt for pictures of the last two albums, which I do not own. You don't own them, right?
No, I don't.
All right.
Okay, first off, stupid album title.
Yeah.
Terrible album cover.
Yeah.
Probably, honestly, their worst album cover, I would say. Like, I don't even...
Could be. And am I wrong? Am I wrong in saying this? But do I
Yeah.
Do I see a cock and balls underneath there, or am I just imagining? Okay.
I thought that was what you were going to say.
I was just imagining whether I did or didn't see that. And I'll tell you, it just dawned on me when I was looking at it today. I think that guy's got a dong going there. What the hell?
Yeah,
man?
I just noticed that the other day too. I never looked closely at the album cover, and then I wish that I hadn't, because every time I think of this album now, I just see a weird alien robot.
Baphomet with the cock and balls.
Yeah, I just see a silver Baphomet dick, and I hear "Hot Mango Flush" in my head.
Hot Mango Flush, yeah.
So, anyway, Yeah, I don't know. This album, you were reading the thing, it kind of stylistically follows in the vein of Roots to Branches, but the songs just aren't as good. I don't know what else to say about that. It's just
Yeah, they're not nearly as good.
no.
I agree.
Yeah, I wrote down similar in style to Roots to Branches, but less consistent. Some high points here and there, but also some much weaker songs than Roots to Branches. Overall, lacking energy, and nothing here is essential listening, honestly. Another hour-long album, which as well, just about, which doesn't help.
No.
Yeah, I mean, the first couple songs are fine. Spiral and .com, which is kind of, I don't know. It seems like they were, instead of kind of some of the more, I don't know, some of the kind of more esoteric topics that they were going for lyrically on Roots to Branches are gone for the most part. And some of these songs are like, you look at the song titles as well. .com spelled out, AWOL, nothing at symbol all. Like, I don't know. It's like they're trying to be modern and hip and appeal to a younger generation or something. And it really dates it, honestly. Even just the album title, jtull.com. It's like, it ends it.
So generic.
And the album cover, it looks and sounds like 1999. And
well, you know the story behind the jtull.com thing is
I don't.
that, well, okay, so basically, Ian claims that he's never really liked the name Jethro because it kind of connotes like the Beverly Hill Billies and the kind of the southern, Confederate sort of thought process, even though he was actually, Jethro Tull was a Scottish, I believe, botanist of the 15th century or something like that, right? Probably a little off on that.
Seed spreader and stuff like that. Agricultural. He invented a bunch of agricultural machinery and stuff like that.
Right.
Seed spreader or something.
But allegedly, Ian didn't really like the word Jethro, so he was trying to sort out, well, maybe if I just do jtull.com. He was, you got to remember 99 was when the internet kind of blew up for everybody. Were you even born? Yeah, you were born. You were when you were born.
I was 4. I was 4 as well.
You were 4. So, yeah, I mean, you don't remember this, but but prior to this, like, we heard this talk of this thing called the internet, this information superhighway, and nobody knew what that meant because back then, dude, my college computer was a 2 megabyte of RAM, 8086. All you could do with it basically was word processing. It didn't really, and maybe basic Excel functions, which took forever, right? So you're not, you just, the first computer I actually had, desktop, had the green printout screen. It didn't even have a color screen, right?
Yeah.
So this is all new shit. And I'll never forget when I got my first really nice compact computer. I think it was compact. And, with a big, the monitor is the size of a fucking, TV, the desktop. And you're like, wow, you got these giant speakers and then you get the internet and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, everything was still very rudimentary, still very, I'll date myself really bad here. I probably shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it. You know me, I have no shame. So if you went looking for porn back in those days and you wanted to look at an image, you had a little small image, like, that it's round, it should be squared. You know what I'm saying? A little tiny image like that. You click on that image and it would literally take like 3 minutes to actually.
It would load down. It would go like this.
Yes, exactly.
5 minutes later.
Exactly. Yeah,
you get exciting in its own way,
Yeah, you get like a nipple, and then finally you get down below the breast, and you'd be like, "Yeah, we're getting the good stuff soon. It's coming. It's coming." No pun intended.
I know what you're talking about.
But yeah,
I had dial up till like 2008.
Yeah, it's so freaking hilarious, man. So that's just how it was, So the matter of and like if you wanted to, when peer-to-peer sharing came up in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, early 2000s, if you wanted to, like download an album, like somebody who's going to share the latest Porcupine Tree with you, you had to turn it on at night and walk away from it. And 8 hours later, you had it to burn onto your CD-ROM burner.
Or sometimes it would snap out 6 hours in, and you had to restart.
And then you would have that, and you have to start over. Exactly. So we've come a long way, but there was the big mad rush to buy domain names back then, and some major artists and bands snoozed on this and weren't able to use their own stuff. They had to do like, I don't know what Jethro Tull's is. What is it? Jethro Tull official? Is that what it says? I can't remember. Yeah, I don't remember, but it's just crazy. It's just bizarre how that kind of worked out that way. And I guess Ian Anderson was actually thinking about doing the jtull.com thing. I think it's Jethro Tull official now. I think it's
just jethrotull.com.
Oh, it is Jethro Tull. Okay, so he got it. He probably was able to buy it from somebody. Because I swear he didn't have that initially, and he had to buy it, and somebody like tried to, extort him for a lot of money, and I don't remember what the deal was, but yeah. So go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. It just, to me, I totally get where that was coming from, but to me, it just dates it,
right?
Because that's such a specific moment in time, kind of. And even the album cover too, like a lot of if you look at the album cover, no, I can't show it on here. It doesn't work on my phone screen. But if you look at the texture in the back of the album cover, like a lot of websites had that kind of same texture in the background and stuff. A lot of old websites. Anyway, yeah. What did I have here? AWOL has a cool bridge section. El Nino has kind of a Middle Eastern feel and some good heavy riffing on that one as well. But I don't know, a lot of these songs kind of don't really do a whole lot for me. Bends Like a Willow is decent. I don't know. And what the hell is a hot mango flush? Do you have any idea what that song is about?
Idea. I assumed it was like a drinking escapade. I don't know though, because the one thing about Ian Anderson is also relatively interesting is that he was married very early on, and he was never like this big hoary front man that was bedding down lots and lots of sluts and drinking and partying, and he was not that dude at all. He was not. I don't know whether he ever did any drugs back in the day, but I don't think he did much, if any. And he was not that guy. They were all kind of, for the most part, they were all kind of very straight guys in a weird way, from that perspective, right? So I don't know. I don't think it was about an affair or anything. I know Jenny, I think it was Jenny, right? Was his first wife? Yeah, Jenny. She's the one that helped write lyrics to Aqualung. And I think they were together for quite a while. And then he got divorced and remarried, I think in the late 80s or somewhere in that range. And I don't know if you knew this, maybe you do know this, maybe you don't, but do you know the Walking Dead?
Yeah, I just found this out the other day, actually.
Rick Grimes is his son-in-law. It's married to his daughter. Rick Grimes, Andrew, I don't know his name, but whatever the dude that was Rick Grimes in The Walking Dead is actually Ian Anderson's son-in-law. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, kind of cool.
but
yeah, I don't know. That song kind of, especially the reprise, the mango surprise thing when it comes back. It's just all these weird sound effects and stuff.
Pretty
terrible. Mango flush over and over and over again. It's just like, shut up.
The weird thing though, what's weird about this album though, dude? That is the Hot Mango Flush is the one song that when I was listening through, I'm like, oh, I remember this one. For some reason, I don't like it. I don't like it, but I remember it. It's just, it's like, oh yeah, I remember this.
Because it's so weird. Yeah, like that's like I was saying too. When I think of this album, that's the first 3 words that pop into my head. Even though I don't want them to be, but
you don't want it to be, but it is what it is. You know. But I have no idea what the hell it is. But I think it sucks. Okay. I think it sucks.
I gave this album a 6 out of 10, but that's kind of being nice. I don't know.
That's actually pretty generous, dude. I'm real generous.
More like a 5.5 now.
All right. That's even way more generous than me. Spiral's okay. Generic radio friendly rock song. Not heavy, not wimpy, but not great. .com, cheesy ballad with some really cringy lyrics. Hate to say it, though. It's kind of catchy. That's probably my favorite song of the album, weirdly. AWOL. This song starts kind of lame, but morphs actually into a pretty kick-ass jam. That and .com are probably my 2 favorites. Nothing at all. Nice little interlude. It's okay. Wicked Windows. Hunt by Numbers. Solid, riffy bar thing. It's okay. Nothing crazy. Nothing special. Although the chorus is weird, but it's just not that good. Hot Mango Flush. We've already talked more than we should about it. El Nino. Weird phased out flange guitar. And sort of a strange delivery by Ian on that vocal. It's a weird stilted sort of delivery. It's a bit... Wow. What the hell, man? Was I falling asleep or was I high whenever? I wasn't high because I don't have anything to get high with. It says, is a bit SIKCONGIIE. Sick Konji.
It wouldn't be a true deep dive if there wasn't some point where you can't read your writing.
Who knows what the fuck I was writing there? Black Mamba. Is it all about Roger Patterson? What? What the fuck? I don't know what that's all about. I had no idea. I have a feeling during that I was looking at something else while I was listening to it. And Roger Patterson, I'm thinking, is the bass player for Atheist, or was the bass player for Atheist.
Right. Yeah.
I'm thinking somebody asked, I was talking to somebody online about that, and I must have noted that. I don't know. Who knows?
Tells you different words to write down.
Yeah, who knows? I have no idea. Mango Surprise, Reprise, Bends Like a Willow. I really like that. Actually, that's my favorite track on the album. I really like Bends Like a Willow. That's a good song. For Alaska, Okay Rocker, The Dog Ear Years, another solid track, but then to be honest, these last bunch of songs all run together, so probably not as good as I'm making it sound. A Gift of Roses, meh. Like the silence gives way to a great solo track, as I said, The Secret Life of Birds, which I mentioned, honestly is a very good album. That really is a solid Ian Anderson solo album. And as I haven't heard the one that you said, Into the Light?
Walk Into Light.
Walk Into Light.
It's really 80s. It's like a new wave kind of thing.
Yeah. Secret Language of Birds. It's really a pretty good album. I like this one.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah, I gotta go back and re-listen to that. Yeah, so this album lacks any big hits and only has a few really decent songs. For diehards only, I'm going a 3.5, dude. 3.5.
Oh wow.
So I will caveat these last 2 albums. I struggled to get through both of these. I fell asleep during the one, and the other one I was only listening to just as we came in live because, frankly, I read enough reviews about them that I just was like, yeah, I'm not going to like these very much, and I was right. They're not very good.
Do we want to mention the Christmas album at all?
Well, I don't have it, so I didn't pull it up.
It's their only thing in between, right? 2003. I mean, it's for a Christmas album, it's pretty good.
Okay.
It's definitely better than jtoll.com, I would say.
Well, that's a pretty low bar.
Yeah.
That's pretty low bar.
I didn't really take notes on it. I just thought we should mention
that's cool.
it. It's decent.
Yeah, I don't own it, and I didn't pick it up. I mean, I tend to be a little bit over the Christmas thing, but maybe if I saw it in a used bin somewhere for $3, $4, $5, I'd probably grab it though.
It's more of a thing like if you're trying to have every album, you want it.
Completist, completist thing, yeah.
It's not essential.
So this is the Zealot Gene, and right away, man, another not so great album cover. Now, instead of getting an artist depiction of Ian Anderson, we're actually getting Ian Anderson as a 75-year-old man, 74-year-old man, something like that. And I will admit, Ian's kept himself in pretty good shape. I don't think, again, he's a great businessman. I think he's a fairly physically fit guy for his age. So I'm not making fun of that or anything. I will say that this album came out January 28th, 2022. Was recorded at Modern World Studios in Gloucestershire, Inside Out Records, first album for them. Nearly 5 years in production. It's the first studio album since the Tull Christmas album in 03, and their first of all original material since Tull.com 99, marking the longest gap between the band's studio albums. The album entered the UK album charts at number 9. That blows my mind. Becoming Jethro Tull's first UK top 10 album since 72. That blows my mind. Totally blows my mind. I just don't even get that. It's the first Tull album to feature an entirely new lineup other than Anderson, with guitarist Florian Ofali, I don't know, who left the band between its recording and release. Bassist Dave Goodyear, keyboardist John O'Hara, and drummer Scott Hammond, replacing 4/5 of the Tull Christmas album lineup of Martin Barr, Jonathan Noyce, Andrew Giddings, and Doan Perry. The new lineup is the same that performed on Anderson's most recent solo album, Homo Eroticus. The album is the first since this was to not involve Barr in any capacity, as he was not asked to return when Anderson reformed Jethro Tull. And I don't know the details of that. I don't know if you do. I never looked into it. I'm not sure what went down between them.
I was watching an interview with Ian, I think.
Right.
Like last year sometime. And I don't know. It sounds like it wasn't anything dramatic or anything. It's kind of just Martin is just kind of doing his own thing these days.
It ran its course.
Yeah.
It ran its course, yeah.
Yeah.
I know he has a solo band, and interestingly, when he was going out on the road a couple years ago, he was doing Blackest Eyes by Porcupine Tree, which is kind of wild. That's cool. As a cover. I don't have anything to say about this album track by track. The last two albums I did not do. If you wanna like be like, well, that's not a very thorough deep dive. Well, you got 20 albums very thoroughly deep dived. These last two just don't move me at all. They don't move the needle at all for me. Ian Anderson's voice sounds like it's really struggling anymore. He sings very softly. He doesn't have a lot of power in his voice at all. He doesn't project well. I listened to this album in the background while I was getting ready. I got maybe 80% of it in, and not one single song stuck out of me. Nothing was like, oh my God, this is absolute horror. It wasn't Under Wraps bad, but it's very inconsequential to me. It just doesn't do much for me. So in all fairness, dude, I'm going to leave these two off the rankings. I don't know if that helps or hurts you, but I'm going to leave them off because I just don't feel like I can honestly put them in anywhere that makes any sense for me, because I just had no desire to listen to them when they were playing. And it's kind of disingenuous for me to say, oh yeah, this is the 5th best album when I barely listen to it, or oh, this is the worst album when I only listened to it once. So right. I'm not going to do that. I will say, though, I think that Zealot Gene sounded considerably better than the last one, which we're going to... Oh, do you have anything to say on Zealot?
Honestly, I kind of have the same exact things to say about this and Rokflot, or however it is. And I kind of feel the exact same way that you do as well. I honestly was kind of excited when this came out. I mean, it was the first time that there's been a new Jethro Tull album since I became a fan.
Right.
So I didn't really, and at that point, I hadn't heard anything past 1979. So I had no idea what to expect. What I will say is these albums aren't bad, but they're not very good either. It's just there's something missing completely to me. It's just all the elements are there. You have the kind of heavyish guitars. You have the flute playing. You have Ian's voice, but none of it. They're just completely lacking energy to me.
Exactly. Perfectly put.
There are dynamics in the songs as well. They have quiet parts and loud parts, and they have some cool sections to them, but it's just everything sounds so monotone the whole way through. And I've listened to each of these albums twice now. I listened to both of them when they came out, and then I listened to both of them over the last few days, and it just kind of goes by and nothing sticks with me at all. And I don't want to put these albums down because I think it is cool that they're still doing something, but at the same time, yeah, they just don't do anything for me.
You encapsulated it perfectly. I, if I would, I'd be lying if I said that this part of the deep dive was mind-blowingly exciting, like the first part was. Right. The first part, we got to talk. Oh shit! Hold on. Almost kicked myself out of the studio. The first part of the deep dive, we were I was reinvigorated. I was really into it. Now there was a couple albums here where I really enjoyed the listening experience, and there were even bits and pieces on some of these up until these last two, where I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. This is a really good track, or this is a lot of fun. This song, or this song really sucks, but I like Martin Barr's playing on it. Like I didn't do much skipping except for on Under Wraps, where I just knew I hated every song. But you nailed it. The minute I put this on, I'm like, there's like no energy at all. It just feels like it's a slog.
Yeah, it sounds like everyone in the band is just bored or something.
Right.
They're just like, they're like, oh, we'll play a guitar.
Well, and the mostly, but it's mostly because of, in my opinion, it's mostly because of Ian's vocal deliveries. They just don't bring anything. They're not really like exciting and dragging you, and they're not doing, whoa, Aqualung, da 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 da, dee 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 dee, dee 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 dee, or something like "Song from the Woods make you feel much better." Then you could know. I mean, he was always so animated and as a singer, and while he might not have been the greatest vocalist in the world, he just brought this powerful energy. Granted, he's 75 years old when this comes out, or 74. Although I think he was recording it for a couple of years leading up to it. But you, like you said, there's just no energy in the performances or the melodies, and you're just like, okay.
Yeah. And like at the same time, I mean, it wouldn't be, I've heard people too say, oh, they should get a different singer. Well, would it really be Jethro Tull?
It's not Jethro Tull then, yeah. No, it's not Jethro Tull.
In on every single album.
I don't want to hear,
but I don't want to say, oh, they should just stop making albums. If they're enjoying doing
exactly,
this, then by all means. But
and Eric, there are going to be that percentage of Jethro Tull fans, of which I feel I'm a pretty diehard fan. But am I like a ride or die? Oh my God, I got to own every nuance of everything. Well, I do own a lot of it, man. I've owned all the CDs. I own some of the originals. I own a lot of the remasters, and I own now the 40th box sets plus all the box sets. So I consider myself a huge fan, but would I want anyone else singing this material? No, I wouldn't. It just wouldn't. It wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. I'd have no interest in it. But the reality of it is, like, they're out on I think they're out on tour right now, Eric.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're out west or something like that. They're coming this way, but they're not coming near Philly or. And I've seen them twice. I saw them on Roots to Branches, and pretty sure I saw them on jtull.com. Like that's the two that jump out at me. And Roots to Branches was really cool. Ian was still, even on tull.com, he was still on really pretty well on form. Very dynamic, energetic performer, very live, a very good performer. So, but yeah, you're right. This just isn't very exciting music on here. And
another thing I'll say too is, I don't know, I feel like the production as well. The production
kind of flat.
lifeless. Yeah, everything is kind of, I don't know. It's just
there's no dynamic. Flat. There's no dynamics. There's no dynamics to it.
Yeah. There's no volume differences or anything really.
And that could be down to a number of things, but it could be that Ian's doing it at his studio, I believe. Yeah. And Ian hears things the way he wants to hear them. And so maybe that's how it sticks out to him. Whereas we might be like, yeah, that's pretty flat all the way around, And I felt the same way as you, that the whole thing sounded flat to me, and not very eventful, and not very exciting, not very energetic and dynamic. And so, yeah, we can move on and wrap this last one up here.
One last thing I'll say about it is Jethro Tull, especially in the 70s, was, I mean, Ian was the leader of the band, always has been basically, but they were a band, with distinctive members and personalities.
Right.
And everybody brought their own little nuances to the sound. Ian would write the basic song and everyone would come and add their personality on top of it. And with these two albums, I feel like no one else in the band is adding another personality to it.
Exactly.
Like it's distilled just to Ian, a 75-year-old Ian, and no one else is inputting anything into the sound.
Dude, that's perfect.
The guitar work, everything is just very nondescript, and there isn't much personality to it. Anyway.
Yeah, perfectly stated. Perfectly stated. I think you're 1,000,000% right on that. And at this point now, we're looking at, let's see, hold on. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 25 members, either members or ex-members. 19 ex-members and 5 core members now. It's hard to, that's hard to manage that, I think, in a lot of ways. And always it's been Ian's trip with some, as you say, in the 70s, there were guys like, Barrymore Barlow was very personable. Martin Barr, Glasscock. They had other stuff going on, and they don't have that. And Jeffrey Ammon. So, it's kind of a shame. It's kind of a shame.
I was just looking up the tour dates. They're doing a few dates in California, and then they're going to Europe.
They're doing some East Coast stuff.
Then they're coming to the East Coast late October, early November.
Is that when it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
New Hampshire, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, okay. I will say I have a huge amount of respect for the fact that they're touring again and putting out albums. That's super cool. But I can't see myself buying either of these albums ever.
No, and I honestly I can't see myself buying a $60, $70 ticket to see this band. It's not, without Martin Barr there, I'm just not that interested. Yeah. And I don't think I necessarily want to see Ian at this stage of his career. I mean, there are a few guys, that are in their 70s, 80s that I'll pay. Like, for example, I probably would pay to see the Stones once, simply if it was Keith and Ronnie and Mick, because Mick was never a great singer, but he's one of the greatest frontmen of all time. And so the energy there would be what would drag me in, seeing the dynamic with those guys and the big spectacle. But would I pay a lot of money for that? No. So then it becomes, well, do I want to sit in the nosebleeds to watch and listen to songs I can hear on the radio that I'm like, yeah, so probably not, unless somebody came to me and said, hey, I got this $500 seat, I'll give you for $100. I'd be like, all right, yeah, I'll do that. But I mean, Glenn Hughes at 70 plus, still fucking shredding people left and right, still destroying people. But beyond that, I really would have to think, like, would I go see Waylon and Bob Dylan now? Probably. If I could get like a lawn seat at an outdoor show or something, I'd probably go. A cheap seat. I'd probably do that just to say, yeah, I did it once. You know what I mean? But like, for example, I think the Eagles are doing a tour in 2024, or is that later this year? Can't remember.
I don't know.
Yeah, they reconvene. So you don't have Glenn Fry, which is a huge problem for me. You got Don Henley, who's kind of a dickhead, quite frankly. And I don't even know. I don't think Don Felder's involved. So you got basically Henley, Timothy B. Schmidt. You got Joe Walsh. I'm not even sure who else is in the band. Do I want to pay hundreds of dollars to see that? Fuck no, I don't. And I love the Eagles. I make no apologies for that. I love the Eagles music. But would I pay a lot of money to see that? And I guarantee you, their tickets are not going to be cheap. You're not going to find cheapies unless you're way up there in the fucking nosebleeds somewhere, miles away from the stage. Fuck no, I ain't paying that kind of money. Get out of here, man. I don't know who else I can think of that's, like, if Pink Floyd reconvene. Well, you don't have Richard Wright. You don't have Dave and fucking Roger are never going to tour together ever.
Yeah.
So that's never going to happen. So there's not many bands that do this. Maiden, they're getting up there. They're not quite 70, or they're right on the verge of 70, and they still bring it. But again, am I going to pay crazy money to see Maiden now at this stage of my life? Probably not.
I've heard Uriah Heep is still pretty good live, apparently.
Yeah, I have, and I don't think you'd be paying crazy money for that ticket. But there's only one original guy there, Mick Box. And Lee Kerslake's dead. What's his name? The keyboardist. Fuck.
I'm drawing a complete blank.
Huh?
I'm drawing a complete blank.
It's right there, and I can't think of it. You'll find it quick.
Ken Hensley.
Ken Hensley, yeah. He's dead. Yeah. Do I really want to see them? No, not really. Not unless somebody was like, yeah, we're going and we got cheap seats, or but they're good seats. It's just a reality of it at this point. And I just don't think with Ian I'm there anymore. And wrapping this up, and then we'll get into, real quickly, like we'll do the ranking, which, by the way, dude, I hate to break it to you, I'm working on as we speak. I forgot to do it. Yeah, totally forgot to do it. So I may have you talk a little bit just so I can figure things out here a little bit. Man, this is hard. Oh,
yeah,
shit.
This was brutal, this ranking. Like, probably the hardest one I've done, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, I would say more difficult than Bowie or Thin Lizzy or whatever. I mean, this was bad. I did not enjoy it, but I think I don't know. I just kind of went with my gut and just did it. But then
that's how I'm doing. That's how I'm doing it right now, man. I'm just like,
I switched some stuff around after that too. Now,
for me,
I was kind of surprised by a couple things. Like, albums I thought were close to the top ended up not being as close as I thought they would and stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, hang on one sec. I'm already about halfway done, so that's good. The last one, I'll let you kind of, I guess. Well, actually, we kind of tied it up, didn't we? We kind of talked about them both.
I feel the exact same way about both albums.
Yeah.
To be honest.
So Rokflot is apparently about. It has something to or Rokflot. I don't know, however you say it. But it kind of, this apparently is sort of a semi-concepty thing about based on Norse mythology, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. A little bit.
And I don't know, man. Like right out of the gate, I listened to it last night or earlier today before I fell asleep, and it put me to sleep by about the 6th or 7th song. I was like, yeah, nothing here. And again, it comes down to what you said. Just not much energy, man. Not much energy at all. It just doesn't feel like it has much dynamics to it. It doesn't feel like it's like the performance are not that the performances are phoned in, but they just don't feel like they're that dynamically trying to get your attention. And so I would say, frankly, that's kind of, these last two, again, I'm not going to rank them. So mine is only going to be 20 albums as opposed to 22, but only mainly because I just don't know these that well. And I fear I'm probably not going to get to know them that well. It just doesn't, I didn't feel after my initial cursory listens like, I got to give this more time. I really think I'm going to like this if I listen to it. To me, I just was like, yeah, kind of generic, whatever, just generic rock that doesn't really have much substance to it. So, and apparently everyone else, we've got 8 people in the chat or 7 people. I don't know if people just swinging by and they got nothing better to do, but nobody's really commented in about an hour and a half. So that must mean that the back half of the catalog is not very good. So, tell you what, while I knock off a couple of these and knock this out, I can do in a few minutes. Would you like to? I'm going to blow you up and just let me know what's going on with your channel, whether you got anything planned. I know. Try and riff a little bit here for me. If you could.
Not a lot lately. Just kind of been busy with a bunch of other stuff, to be honest. But I do have a couple things planned. I might do, I don't know. I was doing some videos where I was just talking about like 2 albums from one band kind of thing, but I think I'd rather do videos where I talk about a few bands in one go. So I might do something like talk about like five albums of like proto metal, like 70s hard rock stuff in one go kind of thing like that, or like 5 like old school death metal albums or whatever in one go. I kind of like, I don't know, I kind of want to still try to focus on stuff that I don't really see other people talking about that much, which is kind of difficult because with all the YouTube channels and stuff now, there are tons of people mentioning all kinds of cool albums.
Right.
But there are still some that don't get talked about enough, in my opinion. And so I'm going to try to focus on the kind of areas where I have investigated a lot of that stuff. So like 90s death metal, 70s prog rock, 70s proto metal are kind of like areas where I feel like I can kind of mention some things that I like that I haven't heard many people talk about. But on this, at the same time, a lot of the things that I would like to talk about, it is cool to have the physical copies to show off. And a lot of the stuff that I would like to be talking about is kind of hard to track down.
Oh, really?
stuff that, I mean, shipping anything to here is really pricey.
Yeah.
It's coming from Canada.
Okay.
Even then sometimes, but like trying to get stuff from Europe and whatever, it's like $30-40 to like ship a couple CDs kind of thing a lot of the time. So I'm kind of chipping away at some stuff that I want to get, but I can't afford to buy a ton of stuff really quickly either. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but I think I can pull off a couple episodes of some videos like that in
Cool.
fairly near future. So yeah. And then if you're doing that prog metal thing, I'll be joining that. And
yeah,
then,
I'm open. And then we have, what are we doing? We're doing something. Talk about that.
well, we're doing episode 3 of Jethro Tull.
Right, which that'll be sometime in October, but we're doing something else sooner than
sooner. Right.
Yeah.
This little band, Vandergraaf Generator. What's it called? Definitive Albums Deconstructed. So I believe you're picking this one, right?
The Dad series.
I think you're picking this, if I'm not mistaken.
Which I am doing Pawn Arch, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that'll be hard to argue with, but I'll try. That one's like one of my favorites for sure too. I shouldn't spoil it too much. Maybe I already did.
I think I got it.
Yeah, doing that.
Yeah, because of you, you son of a bitch.
Oh yeah,
it's all your fault. I've already showed it once, but I'll show it again. But this is how kind of sick the incestuous nature, not incestuous, but the codependency is in the metal VC, in the VC period. But so Erik and I are trying to figure out who we're going to do band wise, and we talked about some metal bands and we talked about some other bands, and he's like, well, what about Vandergraaf Generator? Because we like to do some prog stuff, him and I. I'm like, I like a lot of Vandergraaf, but I don't own much. He's like, yeah, I have X, Y, and Z, whatever you said you had. And I'm like, let me take a look and see what's available. And I go on Vandergraaf, and I freaking, this is the first thing that pops up. And it's like, oh. Now, this set came out in 2020, I think July of 2020, right during the heart of the pandemic. It is a 20-disc set, 17 CDs, 3 Blu-rays, and I even kept the shrink on, which I don't normally do, but I did in this case. But it's a full-on hardbound book. Really beautiful, like coffee table like book, with tons of pics and anecdotes and stuff that I haven't even begun to look into.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And so the book, and then on top of that, you've got discs 13 to 20. I'm not crazy about the fact that they do them like this, but I'm kind of used to them doing it this way to keep costs down. But you got like an envelope, so you don't have an individual thing here for the CDs, which sucks. But then the Blu-rays are in these little, these sleeves, and on these you've got God Bluff Still Life in 5.1 surround. You've got which one's this one? The Video Vaults, so that's all Blu-ray stuff on Blu-ray, video stuff, and then down here you've got 2 other albums in 5.1, I believe. Pawn Hearts and H to HE, Who Am the Only One. So these are the Blu-rays, and they've got tons of bonus material, and so that's another one of the things. And then you got the master tapes, which is this is actually the actual pictures of the master tapes. Look at that. That's kind of cool. 2-inch tapes for that stuff.
Yeah.
And then the last one is the 1 through 12 discs. So you got a trifold here with all the discs in there for each. And what's crazy about this is that, I mean, there is so much material here that, you know, even if my health were good, I'm not sure if I'd ever get through it all. Seriously, I hope, but you know, I don't know. There's been a lot of really uncool stuff happening with me the last couple of weeks. So, and in fact, tomorrow I'm probably going to be going into the ER for neurological stuff. So, because I'm supposed to go to physical therapy tomorrow, and I got a feeling once he sees, but this is once he sees how I'm doing, he's probably going to tell me to go in there. But yeah, this features newly remastered version of the album. The least we can do is wave to each other. H to HE, Pawn Arts, God Love, Still Life, World Record, The Quiet Zone, Pleasure Dome, and Vital, along with previously unreleased concert in Paris from '76. BBC sessions recorded by the band between '70 and '77, previously unreleased studio outtakes. Then it's got 4 albums in 5.1, and it's got the video of all the stuff. Now, this was a $350 box set. When it first came out, that's what it was going for. And I was like, yeah, I like them, but I don't like them that much. Well, Eric and I get talking about doing Van der Graaf Generator for the Dad series, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really own this. Maybe I should check this. And I pull that up, and it's like, oh, it's only $140. Now, when you say only 140, that's a lot of money. But for everything you're getting there, it's pretty cheap. So yeah, pretty crazy stuff there. So
yeah, I mean, for 20 discs, that's like what, $7-8 a disc?
Plus. Yeah, and Blu-rays too. The Blu-rays probably individually would be going for about $20-$25 a piece.
Yeah.
So
and then you get that big book, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so about $7. So really, in reality, it's probably only about $5 a piece for each disc, which is a steal of the deal for brand new, remastered, 5.1 and all that stuff. So it was almost like, I was talking to him. I'm like, dude, I can't believe that I just did this. I'm like, it's in my cart. I fear when I don't know, did I buy it while we were talking? I think I might have, didn't I?
You were trying to message me, and I was busy with something, and you just did it. And then you called me to say, fuck you.
That's right. Like, fuck you, you little bastard. You made me buy this. So we'll do the ranking in one sec here quick. Couple of things. So upcoming on my thing. Probably going to take most of this week off, man. I've been slamming content out, and I'm pretty roached a little bit. Although I think Logan and I are going to do Soundgarden on Thursday night for the Dad series. He picked us Super Unknown. I picked Bad Motor Finger. On Sunday next week, I've got Richard Barbieri from Porcupine Tree, Japan, Jansen Barbieri Karn, Hogarth, No Man, Japan. I said that, Porcupine Tree. Anyways, he's coming in at 2:00. We're going to do a sit-down hang, an interview. Very interesting guy, a friend of mine from 20 years back. Very, very good dude. I think that's it for this coming week, I think. But you know me, I always tend to throw something in at the last second, so who knows. Dennis and I are going to do the Forgotten Metal Gems. I think it's the 28th. I think. Not entirely. Oh, I know one I forgot. Saturday. There is something Saturday. Saturday is this, and this is going to be wicked. On Kellen's channel, Killing for Company, we are doing. Let me pull it up here. It's not finished. I have to finish the. Have to add Kellen's face in, and but this is the preliminary artwork. I also need to put some lettering in for stuff. But on Kellen's channel,
cool.
It's going to be myself, Peter, and Kellen for Killing for Company, and we're going to compare and contrast and review the last 2 Bluthaus Nords, the Disharmonium series. We were in album 2 of 3. The last one came out last month, I think August 26th, a couple weeks ago. I've not listened to it yet. I'm gonna start digging into that this week. That's why I need a little bit of time because I've been jamming a lot of music in my head. And so that's coming up on the 23rd at 7 p.m. I think. 28th, I think. Dennis and I are reconvening for Forgotten Metal Gems. We're going to do Kick Axe. Do you remember them? They're a Canadian band, Kick Axe.
Yeah.
From Saskatchewan. Heavy Metal Shuffle. Good song. Sortilege from France. Slaughter Extroyas from Chicago. And Laz Rocket from San Francisco. We're going to do all the 80s and 90s albums of those guys. So that's another 11, 12 albums I got to jam in before next weekend. Not this weekend coming, but next. And I think that's it. And then going into October, Prog Metal Island, we'll put it together. On Sunday, too. I forgot. On Sunday, Lee and I are doing Pink Floyd. He chose Dark Side. I'm doing Animals. And in October, hoping to get the Rainbow Deep Dive with Tom Bierhorst and Craig Bierhorst and Tom Draper, and hopefully one other special guest, a musician of note. Hoping to do that the first week or maybe the second week, I think it is. And also more dads coming up. About 2 per week, probably Sunday and Thursday or when I'm doing those, or Tuesday and Sunday, something like that. I don't know. And I think that's it. So let's get into our rankings quick, and then we'll call it a night, dude. So it ended up being a 3-hour episode anyways.
Yeah.
We got into we were tangentially getting into stuff, so not shocking. All right, what you got for number? Are you gonna rank the last 2 or not?
I did.
Okay, go ahead. You give me those 2.
Oh. Right. Okay. So I'll
give
start.
Me your last.
Yeah.
Start with your 22nd. I'll start at 20.
22. Surprise, surprise. Aqualung.
Yeah, right.
It's under wraps.
Under wraps. Yeah, right. Sure. What's 21?
Catfish Rising.
Okay. For me, under wraps, number 20. So you're at 20.
Rokflot.
Which one?
Rokflot.
Rokflot. All right. For me, number 19, jtull.com.
I got the Zealot Gene.
All right. For me, the next one, 18, is This Was.
I have jtull.com.
What was you had Catfish, all right? Okay. For me, the next one, which is 17, is Catfish.
I have This Was.
16 for me, Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die.
I got Rock Island.
For 15, I've got Rock Island.
15, I have Too Old to Rock and Roll.
We're either one off of on each other. It's gonna be interesting when we get close to the top. All right. For number where are we at? 14, right? 14 is Crest of a Knave.
Same.
13, Roots to Branches.
Same.
12, War Child.
Oh, I got Broadsword at 12.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. That was 12, right?
Yeah.
For 11, I have A.
Same.
For 10, I have Shocker, Thick as a Brick.
What?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm not crazy about that album like a lot of other people are. It just repeats a lot of the same shit over and over.
You know, I still love it. It was the first one I ever bought on vinyl and stuff, and I was so entranced by the fact that it was one song and everything that I think I kind of blew it out of proportion in my mind. And I still love it, but I don't love it as much as I used to.
Right. Yeah. And I'm like you. I was like that too. It would have been ranked higher, much higher earlier on in my life. But the more I've sat with it, the more I've listened to it, the less I like it. to be honest with you.
Yeah,
So
I
you're
kind of
you're number 10, I think, right?
War Child.
All right. Number 9, Broadsword.
Number
9 for
9.
you.
A Passion Play.
All right. That's my number 8, Passion Play.
I got Stormwatch.
For number 8.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 7 for me is Stand Up.
I got Thick as a Brick.
Number 6 for me is Stormwatch.
I got Benefit.
All right. Number 5 for me is Benefit.
I have Stand Up.
Number 4 for me is Minstrel in the Gallery.
I got Heavy Horses.
All right. Number 3 for me is Heavy Horses.
Number 3 is Songs from the Wood.
Number 2 for me is Aqualung. Hey, Aqualung.
Number 2, Minstrel in the Gallery.
Number 1 for me is Songs from the Woods.
Nice.
Makes you feel
Nice.
much better. I love that.
I got Aqualung, but
All right.
I mean,
that makes sense. So we
those-
were close in most of those.
those top like 9 or so are just like
Yeah.
it's
Almost
splitting.
pretty interchangeable, right?
Yeah.
Pretty interchangeable.
Depends on the day of the week.
Yeah, and I just so people watching, I did not rank Rokflot and Zelagene because I just don't feel like I had enough information in my information bank. My RAM memory was jam packed, so I didn't talk about them. But all right, so the next thing we're going to talk about when we get back to this is we're going to talk about.
I don't have all of them, but these box
Yeah, we're going
sets.
to talk about all those box sets, the book sets so far, which go up through Broadsword, which I'll probably have by the time we do that. I'll have them all just in case he doesn't. But you can find the stuff online though, Eric.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the 20th anniversary CD edition. Or, I'm sorry, CD box set. I have the box. It's in my closet. So this has a lot of stuff that heretofore was not released until this box set. So that's
basically we're doing bonus material, right?
Yeah, we're doing box sets and bonus material. So was that? Let me show you. Ow. This is what it's like being old, guys. This is what it's like. Son of a bitch! What did I do with?
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, I mean, there's probably 75, 80 songs, if not more.
It might even be more than that.
Yeah, that Jethro Tull recorded from the 60s to the 90s and never released on any studio albums. I mean, up through here, let me just check. Because I made a playlist on YouTube Music of all the bonus songs on various different versions of the album.
Right.
Let me see. And up through, what is it? Up through Broadsword. This is just up through Broadsword. You had about 60 songs that got left off the album.
Wow.
It's just insane.
Within
the first, 10 years.
Absolutely insane. So,
and that's not even counting Living in the Past.
Which I do not own that, and I'm going to have to source a copy of that before we do this live. So we're going to talk about. I'll pull the box out. It's in a box in the thing. We're going to talk about this set, which is the 20th anniversary of the band. Okay, which came out in '88. This is one of the very first CD box sets ever to be manufactured. I'm not sure. I was almost going to say it's the first, but I don't think that's true. But this one is really good because there's the Chateau Disaster tapes on here incomplete. The Chateau d'Orval stuff. lot of stuff on here, man, that I'd have to cross-reference and see what's on here that are on those, on the 40th. But I don't think a lot of it's on there, to be honest with you. And then we're going to talk about, we'll probably throw this one in just for the fun of it. A little light music, Eric. We'll throw that in. So
What is that?
that's 4 CDs. We'll talk about this one. I definitely want to talk about this because I just got this not long ago. Nightcap, which has the complete Chateau d'Orville tracks, Chateau Disaster tapes, the whole thing, and then you got the unreleased and rare tracks on here. So that's another 2 CDs. This one I'm 99% sure is everything that's already out. So it's just why I have it, I don't even know. And then we'll talk about this box set, which sadly, look at this. This used to be hard to find. But unfortunately, in my move, look what happened, man. The cigar box thing from 93 just got totally fucking destroyed. In my move, it got crushed in moving. Boxes were heavy. So in this, what you have in here are the 4 CDs of, you've got the Beacon's Bottom tapes, this is the 25th anniversary, which has different releases of a lot of major songs on it. Okay, you've got the remixed classic songs. You've got the Potpourri Live Across the World and Through the Years CD. And then you've got the Carnegie Hall, New York 1970 show. So those are, we're not going to, by the way, on the bonus material for the books, Eric, we're not going to get into the live stuff. I don't care about the live stuff. Every one of them comes with a live show. You know what you're getting, a live show. But this one then comes with, the book. So lots and lots of stuff in there. Sadly, that got roached. This at one time was going for about $225. I think it's come down quite a bit, but mine's probably worth about $25 because it's beat the fuck. And you can't fix something like that. There's no way to, no way to fix that. So I think that's all. Is there any other box set I'm missing? I don't think there is. Is there?
Not that I know of.
I don't think so. So that's the plan for part 3, which will put a bow on the entire Jethro Tull catalog. And I'm not going to say yet when that's going to be, Eric, and I'll have to discuss how his schedule's looking and how I'm, what I've got going on. And I don't want it to linger on for months and months. I kind of want to get it done in October sometime, because that means we did something in August, we did something in September, we did something inside of 3 months. We were able to knock the whole massive amount of stuff out of the way. Is that it then, dude? I think.
Yeah, I only have a 5 box set, so I mean, I'm more gonna just be talking about the songs because a lot of them are worth hearing.
Yeah, a lot of them really are. A lot of Ian Anderson's throwaway stuff from the 70s, it could have easily been on albums. I mean, they're that good at tracks. So we'll tackle that. Probably that's how we'll do it. We'll probably tackle it by going, all right, let's talk about for example,
album by album, kind of.
Yeah, we'll start with This Was. We'll go through that quick. We probably aren't going to spend a lot of time on the early stuff, but on this album, you've got Associated Recordings. You've got Crossword, Dark Ages early version, Kelpie, Dunring Gill early version, A Stitch in Time, A Single Man, Broadford's Bazaar, King Henry's Madrigal, Orion full
length version.
Oh, so there's a longer version.
Yeah, I guess
Urban Apocalypse, Lyricon Blues, Man of God, Rock Instrumental, Sweet Dream Fanfare. So you got almost 15 tracks there. It's a full CD.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a full CD. I mean,
you got the different versions, but you got.
Yeah, we don't have to spend a lot of time on that stuff. But for example, on A, there's only 5 songs: Crossfire, extended version, Working John, Take 4, Cheerio, early version, Koryusk, and Slipstream. So that's
Yeah,
an
and
easy one.
yeah,
That's an easy one, right? You know what I mean?
but yeah, but like on this, you got 10 songs right there that
Exactly.
don't
It's a
appear
full
anywhere
album.
else, and they're
It's a
not
full
alternate
album.
versions. There are a few songs here and there that have bits and pieces that went on to get used in other songs and whatnot.
Exactly.
When you
Right.
recognize a section or whatever, but
Right.
yeah.
And
Anyway,
so
that's for another episode.
we'll kind of tackle it that way because, like I said, some of the stuff I happen to know, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that the Broadsword and the Beast box set, it's got 8 discs, and I think honestly, I think there's literally like almost a full album and a half of bonus tracks that never
Wow.
made it out. It was one of the albums that they had the most material for because they started those sessions. Remember, they started the sessions with Keith Olsen and threw a lot of that out, but that's now on that box set. So we're looking at another 3+ hour episode again. So all told, we're probably going to have about 11 or 12 hours in deep dive time into Jethro Tull, which is, most people are like, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? Like, why? What are you guys literally that fucking big of losers that you just don't have anything better to do with your time?
Yes.
Well, I do. I don't have much better to do. So, but we're gonna work on that, and Eric and I'll try and come up with that, and then Eric and I'll try and come up with when we're gonna do our dad episode. These dad episodes are fun because it's just me and one person. It's not everybody trying to talk over each other. We have a nice little outline about how we run through it. We did Morbid Angel, Nick and I, on Saturday night, and some dude came in and he's like, I can't believe a Morbid Angel. What was it? What's that comment? Fuck. It's fucking hilarious. Hold on. I gotta read it because it got a little testy. He backed off, but it got a little testy. Let's see. Come on, you bitch.
If it's in the live chat, you'll have to go back to like where it
No,
was.
no, it's not the live chat. It's in the comments. All right, so it says, hold on. Come on, get off there. Right. So I said, this guy says, a Morbid Angel podcast that shits on Trey's guitar playing. Now I've heard it all. And I said, you didn't listen very closely, did you? I clearly said he is both the best thing and the worst thing about Morbid Angel. Very clearly laid out why that is for me. My show, my opinion, didn't say you had to agree with me or that anyone else had to agree. So he comes back with, to say the musicians playing does not serve the song is the biggest insult you could ever throw at a musician. That implies you know what serves the song better rather than the musician. And I'm like, okay. So you just came here to troll me and be a douchebag, right? Have you enjoyed your stay? Did I hurt your feelings? So it's like, I have my feelings about it. I think Trey's playing is great, and it's also a pain. It's also, he's all over the place doing all kind of wanky shit that is just not necessary. That's my take. You don't have to have that same take. But actually, it was like funny because the one guy, he's like, P.S. This is a different guy. He's like, P.S. Your take on Trey's leads. Damn, that was a surprise. I've always adored his soloing. I don't think they're too excessive either. Normally 1 or 2 per song, same as Chuck from Death, for example. I respect your take though. He definitely pushes that flamboyant wanking front and center. If you're not a fan of that style, I can see why it may bug you a little bit. And I'm like, he wanks way too much for my liking. Not going to argue his riff writing. His soloing is excessively masturbatory a lot of the time, and it annoys me. That's all, So that it's just funny how that became like sort of a little bit of a fire brand of me simply saying, yeah, I don't like the fact that in between every verse or chorus he's doing, it's like I don't need to hear that in every song. And if you like it, cool. That's one thing that makes me not want to listen to Morbid Angel more often, and it's the fact that I love his rhythm riffs. I love those lurching, crazy riffs, but I don't like all the solo bullshit that he does, all the wanking. So, all right, man. I think that's it. Thanks to everybody that stuck around for the full 3.5 hours. I guess it was probably good that, huh?
I was just gonna say thanks for anybody that tuned in at any point.
Yeah. And sub up to Erik if you haven't yet. And if you haven't subbed up to me, do it. Always stuff coming out. I don't know where things are going to go in the next week or so as far as, how much I'm going to get done this week, if anything, because I do have a strong suspicion when I go to physical therapy tomorrow, I might end up having to make a trip to the hospital. But I felt that for months. And every time I go to the doctor, it's like, well, your vitals seem okay. It's like, yeah, but why is this, and this happening? I don't want to get into it. But yeah. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We'll throw out a date on the part 3 soon, and we'll get that hopefully in October. Get that done. And it's kind of a bummer Pat didn't come back, but he said, "Look, I barely know those albums. I don't like a lot of those albums. I tapped out after." He actually said he tapped out after Heavy Horses. My friend Lewis, I actually invited him on. And he's like, yeah, I love Jethro Tull in the 70s.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I get it.
I get it. Yeah. And, like I said, I didn't get to see him till the 90s. I think it was .com and Roots. And, I would have loved to have seen them back in their heyday, but it just didn't happen. Even though I knew of them, certainly going all the way back to the 70s when they were one of the first bands I ever heard as a kid. Aqualung was, that was the jam in the neighborhood pool hall. So, all right, dude, I appreciate you joining me tonight. You're the best. And
yeah, thanks for having me.
Hang on a sec.
You should tell Pat to listen to this, though.
Tell who?
Tell Pat to listen to this. If he taps
Pat.
out with
Pat. Yeah. Yeah, I think he probably knows that one. I'd be surprised if he didn't, but he should. You're right. That's still probably the end of the real era. I know we both like A and Broadsword a good bit, and I like one or two other albums in there, sort of. But that's kind of the end of the era for me. That was kind of the end of where that run of great albums, like you said, kind of hit the end. Because while A and Broadsword are both good albums, they're not superlative albums like most everything that came before. Too Old to Rock and Roll was a bit of a weird thing, and this is a bit of a weird thing. And I'm not always in love with War Child. I think it's a better album than I remembered, but I'm not always in love with it, So, all right, man, hang on.